something to share in either wisdom, story, or logic. And it's clearly amazing to hear all the differing missing links discovered by people unique to their own journeys and in how they have come to discover them. Together, we can help to build a bigger picture for a better future, for a brighter tomorrow. Let's stand united. Let's remove the veils and let's create a new world together. Are you that missing link? Join Jesse Hale on the Missing Link Talk Show as he helps to unveil the mystery through the unique wisdom and story of others.
3, 2, 1.
Welcome everybody here back to the Missing Link. Today we're excited and honored to have I'm hearing I'm hearing myself in the background. Some strange stuff always happen, but we're welcome to have someone who is a tax accountant for the FBI or a forensic accountant, and he's here to share his story. Dave XRPLion 1. How are you doing today, brother?
I'm doing great, sir. Thank you for the opportunity to share with your listeners and everybody on all of the live links from Facebook to Twitter to Rumble. And I'm sure I left several out. So I'm excited about this. A lot of fantastic revelation has been dropped in the last week. You and I tried to get together earlier and that didn't work out. And now I know why.
That's so perfect. So why don't you start off with telling us about yourself, about your journey, a little bit about your background, your education, what part of the world you grew up in, what part of the world you're in now, if you like disclosing that information, and what got you into, I believe you did some service, what got you working with the FBI, anything that you wanted to share about your journey here with the audience, especially if they may be hearing you here for the first time.
Absolutely. Be more than glad to do that. Let me take you back. I grew up in a law enforcement family. My father was in law enforcement for 35 years. All of my uncles were in law enforcement for Border Patrol up and down the state of California. So I grew up in Southern California. During that time, I was active in sports. I was a motocross racer. And then when I went to college, I had to make a decision. What am I going to do? I wanted to be a professional bass fisherman because I love bass fishing. So at that time, I went into accounting in that area of finance. And I decided that I wanted to be at the front of change. In order to do so, there's two paths. Either you go into auditing, where you're dealing with history in the past, or you go into tax. And then you're able to help affect the future. Well, that's the path I chose. And I was one of 6 people that graduated from San Diego State with a job with the Big 8 and went to downtown Los Angeles, spent some time there. Then I moved over to Long Beach, where I spent a little bit over a year working with 10,000 member partnership returns for real estate. And then realized I had a calling again to want to help the individuals. Found a medium-sized firm in Newport Beach and began to work on high net worth individuals, which was kind of my forte. Because then you had some room and you could really affect change because they didn't know what to do. So after I did that, I went into private accounting. I spent 7 years doing that, working for a doctor group. And that was kind of fun. I basically wore every hat from, the dental controller to the corporate controller to doing all the tax work. And, again, my background was tax, so I really enjoyed it. Well, I was helping everybody save so much money in taxes. They wanted to know how do we invest it? Well, this was right during that boom in 1992 when everything just kind of took off right up to 2000. And because I was giving so much financial advice with regards to how to invest their money, I went into becoming a professional investor myself or trader. And I did that from 97 until about 3 years ago. And during that time, I worked with Wall Street. And let me back up for a second. When I was working with the doctor group, that's when I spent 5 years working with the FBI on a criminal case that had affected the doctor. And during that time, I provided all the forensic accounting to catch this crook who was basically scamming the doctor group, claiming to be a CPA, claiming to be a contractor, and pulling all. I mean, this guy pulled every shenanigan with regards to trying to hide money that you can imagine, Jesse. He had 7 sets of books. He changed the checks like every other month. So you'd get this small sequence of check numbers, and then they would start all over again. So 1,000 to 1,100, and then it would go back to 1,000, and it would start over again with a different bank, and it was it was a bit of a nightmare, but I figured it out, and was key to their case and testimony against him, and he went to prison for 5 years as a result of it, and there was over a $2 million civil fine in that particular case. But that brought me forward into developing my own algorithms, of course, with divine intervention, and I've talked about that on other shows. And then it led me into the digital asset space because my brother came to me and asked me. This was right before the C word. My wife and I had actually been on the cruise ship in Japan at Ground Zero, and we're locked down on the ship for 14 days. Then we were evacuated by President Trump on cargo planes. Spent another 2 weeks at Lackland Air Force Base under armed guard. Couldn't leave the building. Couldn't even go out on the grass to get fresh air. And they were told shoot to kill. Because see, we were like the plague when we came back, having been at Ground Zero. So that took a little bit of a toll, but it gave me time to investigate the digital asset space based upon my brother's request, looking specifically at XRP. And people have asked, well, how did you get into the space, Dave? Well, that's how I got into the space. I was not involved in digital assets, knew nothing about decentralized networks, zero. I was a professional trader trading the S&P 500 futures almost 24 hours a day and doing very fine, very fine. And I was over on Twitter, TikTok. That's where I started to report about the XRP situation because they were attempting to steal it. Originally, it was a Black Hat project. So was Stellar. And the Global White Hat Military Control took it over between 2014, 2015. And that's when Brad Garlinghouse came in as CTO first, and then he came in as the CEO in 2016. So 2015, he was CTO. 2016, he was the CEO. So it was more of a situation where I was trying to assist my brother doing a due diligence check on it to then realize, hey, wait a minute, this is the one. And as I used those forensic analysis tools and systems to drill down on it, it just got exposed more and more and more for what its purpose was, because it's all about its purpose. And most people are misguided in understanding its purpose because it's not like anything else in the industry. And I'll stop right there.
Now, I have a few thousand XRP myself. There's some stuff that's going on right now. We hear there's some stuff that's, happening. Is it good to keep it? Like you said, is this going to be a bridge to the RV? Like, how do you think that, the XRP is going to play a role in what's to come?
Let me unpack that for you. When I came over to Twitter on April 3rd, 2021, I was asked to come over to Twitter to expose the attempted theft. And again, not knowing anything about the space, not knowing anything about what was going on, I just began to report what the Lord revealed to me. And I mean, I was putting stuff out there, Jesse. I mean, I was hanging in the wind. And then what would happen is anywhere from 2 days to a month after I would post something, then it would get confirmed. I ended up meeting Jimmy Valley in August of 2021. Elon Musk found me on Twitter 4 days after I was on the platform. So it took me a whole day to figure out how to send out a tweet. And then wanting to take a look at the space, I chose Bitcoin as the first thing I reported on. And I used the expertise I have in sacred math to do an analysis on Bitcoin. Well, lo and behold, the fourth day I'm on Twitter, somebody sends me a DM and says, "Oh, by the way, do you know that Elon Musk just replied to one of your posts?" And of course, I thought it was, somebody claiming to be Elon Musk, only to go and find out it had the little check mark on it. And they told me, he said, "Hey, I love your work. Keep doing it." And that just progressed and progressed and progressed, and more revelation came. And I just continued to post. And I was breaking all the clues from David Schwartz that had been there for, 7 years or longer. And that was really my calling. My calling was to expose XRP for what it was, to reveal to people how it was going to be used. And from day one, when I came in, I began to talk about the buyback of XRP. Prior to that, no one had ever used the term buyback. It wasn't even known to the community. And Jimmy Valley's attested to that. He was the first person I saw on a YouTube video talking about XRP. And this is what he said, Jesse. He said, XRP was created to carry a value of $10,000 to $35,000. Now, he didn't say it was to have a value. He said it was to carry a value. And words are very, very specific, and they're meaningful. So I became the leading expert in the price discovery for XRP. When he contacted me in April of 2021, he told me that they had a small group of people in a committee that were getting ready to present a private offer to the Federal Reserve and the U.S. Treasury Department. He said, "I've been following your work since you came to Twitter, and I would hope that you would join us and bring your expertise in pricing to help us submit this offer." And I did. So that was, I think we first spoke on August 26th of 2021. And on September 13th, we submitted the first offer to the private reserve. And that offer was $25,000 per XRP. Now, that was based upon the information that I had at the time. It wasn't more than 2 weeks later that new information came in, and I went back into my model and modified the pricing on my model to fit the information. And now the price had gone up to $37,500. So I went ahead and made that very, very aware to Jimmy, and he said we needed to submit another offer. That offer went out on October 29th of 2021. Now, it wasn't that we were necessarily expecting to get an answer back, but we needed to make sure that the community knew this wasn't a $5 token. It wasn't something that was going to be treated as all the other tokens. And as I put it before, when you have something of this quality, no one can talk about it. Brad Garlinghouse, David Schwartz, they're all under NDAs because the purpose or the utility behind the XRP, I don't even like to call it a token, I call it a key. It's a master key. It's what bridges, and we use the word bridge. This comes right from Brad Garlinghouse. It's not a bridge like San Francisco Bridge. It's a bridge that connects two dimensions. It connects our dimension, which is the third dimension, and it connects us to the fifth dimension, which is where the XRPL quantum financial system resides. And it was something that was created out of time. It's a megalithic financial structure, a quantum consciousness, and it was given to us in time. And it's hundreds of millions of years old and was used before us. So it was given to us to help us get through this time period where we were dealing with the Luciferian, deep state cabal, Khazarian mafia and their fiat fractionalized banking system, which was designed to take us out, kept us as slaves. And interestingly enough, I just posted for the second time yesterday. On April 20th of 1871, our 19th president, Ulysses S. Grant, signed what was called the District of Columbia Organic Act of 1871. By doing so, he converted the United States of America into the United States of America, Inc. And by creating a corporation, we became property, which is called chattel. That means we were slaves. The only people that had Social Security cards and numbers before that were slaves because they were traded. Well, we've been traded. Every aspect of our life has been traded on Wall Street, starting with our birth certificates, our Social Security cards, our number, our wedding documents, divorce documents, college degrees and certifications. Anytime that we advanced, they created another bond and they traded it. And these bonds have been said to have earned over 42% a year. Yeah, one person was able to figure out how to go look up their bonds in the Fidelity system, and their birth certificate was worth over $8 billion. Yeah, $8 billion for their birth certificate, and their Social Security number was over $8 billion. And there's these private trusts that are created out of this. So when we go to buy a house, the reason why it takes so long to close, especially when you go to title, is because they have to contact whoever controls our Seneca trust to remit the money from our trust to them to pay off the property. And then they turn around and issue a mortgage on the property, so we have to pay them back again. And the banking system does the same thing. When you go into a bank and you open up a bank account, they go to your Seneca Trust and open up a private account in your name that they're the trustee for the same amount of money. You've heard the term marked to market? They created it so that any time that you added money to your bank account, they could tap your Seneca Trust for that same amount. So the balance never went down. It just continued to go up and up and up and up and up. So think about over, 15, 20 years, how much money you deposited into your bank account. And whatever that highest point was, they maintained an account hidden from each person for that. And then if you left the bank or they squeezed you out, right? Because they didn't like your deposit history or the transactions that you were doing, you had too many deposits. It's like, wait a minute, how could you have too many deposits? You would think it would be withdrawals, right? You had too many withdrawals. But no, if you deposited too much money, then they asked you to leave because they thought you were nefarious. But they've kept that away from us and then turned around and still charge us to borrow our own money. So, that whole system has come to an end. And that system came to an end on April 11th when our CIC, Trump, commander in charge, signed us into the BRICS alliance with its 100% gold-backed asset standard that eliminated the central bank. So there is no more a central bank. That was the cabal. And he signed in their bankruptcy. Oh, back to Ulysses S. Grant. He put us into chattel. He incorporated the United States of America. Well, coming up on May 6th of 2020, Donald Trump signed the bankruptcy records for the United States Inc. Now, interestingly enough, get this. How many weeks away is it to May 6th of 2024? On that day, it celebrates 7,777 weeks since Ulysses S. Grant made us chattel. And these things mean things when you have dates like that. And that's actually where I started with XRP, when I was breaking down the price discovery, and the Lord took me back to the Mayan calendar. And what had happened during the time was XRP buyback was supposed to happen first in the end of 2021. Well, they brought Nasara in the first position because when we go to what are called redemption centers to receive our payments for everything that they've stolen, and where we have our debt forgiveness, and where we have our recapitulation, and we have our restitution and our redemption, and this is where we take our currencies and our bonds for exchange and redemption, it became known that something had to be done. Because otherwise what was going to happen is we were going to have a whole lot of resentment from people, Jesse, that got this windfall having owned XRP. And I'm going to tell you what that price is as we move forward here, because it's important people know. But what it meant was, by avoiding this resentment that wouldn't be in somebody's heart when they go to the redemption center, because we're going to be scanned. And when I say it's scanned, I mean they have technology to determine if we're a good person or not.
Our hearts will be scanned?
Our hearts will be scanned. And if we're harboring resentment or offense is the minimum infraction. That's what the Lord said. He said, let everybody know that the minimum infraction to keep them away from going through the redemption center is offense. And he said, because the enemy was locked up, chained up on December 21st, 2020, that would keep people from going through. Just that. But he said it's the minions and the people right now that are closest to us that are going to be used to try to create offense. Family members, friends, neighbors, people that you would never think would come against you. Well, hasn't it been that way since the C word? You got people, you got friendships and family members and things like that that won't do anything with you if you're on this side and they're on that side. I mean, it's appalling how families have been, split and separated. I couldn't see my father on his deathbed because my mother said, you had to come. If you want to come, you have to get the, you know what? Now she just passed away a little bit over a month ago. So
sad to hear. Our condolences to you and your family.
Well, thank you. But she's in a much better place. I know that.
Her
And
soul can fly free now.
Exactly. And she can be with my father and they can enjoy being together in heaven. So they lived a long life. They lived, good long lives. And that was what was important. But the people that remain are the ones that have been chosen to carry forward the legacy to heal humanity, take care of the children, right? It's all about the children. They're the legacy. They're the future. And with the technology that's coming out that we're going to be made known, that's going to be made known to us, we're going to have 200 to 250 more years to live, Jesse. Yeah.
What's crazy about that is I've always felt like we should be living here a lot longer. I've told people for most of my life, I feel like I'm going to be here till at least 180 years old. And like, this is like how I've lived my life. I've never thought, like, I just turned 50 and I definitely don't look like I'm 50. And, I just feel like we're supposed to be here a lot longer than, whatever it is that there's restraints that they've been put on us.
Well, and the nice part about that too is some of the information that I've received identifies the fact that we are going to be eligible up to 3 times for age regression. So, for example, you could go back to being 25.
Wow, that's just
And that's
wild
something.
concept to even think about.
And that's something. And then you could live for 100 years and go back to 50.
Wow. So this is a type of technology that's been hidden from us?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Because apparently there's 5,000 patents that could free humanity that's been hidden from us from a very long time. And would this be maybe one of them?
Well, there's over 6,000, and yes, it is. These are called med beds. And everybody's going to get an opportunity that goes through the redemption center to go to a med bed for assessment. And Jimmy Valley shared with me a situation where someone he knew was a doctor, and that particular university where he worked actually got one of the first, and it had to do with brain cancers, things of the brain. And if you don't mind, I'll share very quickly what he shared with me with regards to the session he had with his patient. If
Yeah,
you're
please. Yeah, of course. This is your time. Whatever you want to share here, brother.
This is how he described it. He said, he ran into him at an airport or something, and they're like, "Hey, how you doing?" And he says, "Hey, I know you're in the special field. Have you heard anything about these med beds that are coming out?" And he kind of, you know, had a big smile, and he says, "Yeah, I just used one." And he goes, "Can you tell me anything about it?" And he says, "Well, this is what I can tell you." He said, "The one that we're using," and I won't name where he's at, but he said, "We've got one, and because I'm the head doctor at the university for brain related injuries and things," he said, "I had a patient who had stage 4 terminal brain cancer." So he said, "I've got him in the operatory in the room, and I've got him sitting in the device." He says, "It's like a dental chair." Then he said, "This arm came up and basically scanned his brain for about, I don't know, 2 or 3 minutes. That arm went down, and mind you, the patient is wearing like those goggles, that you would see in a virtual reality type situation. And there was a crystal LCD display that the doctor could see, and he could see the mass. He said the mass was about as big as your fist in this gentleman's brain. Another arm comes up and points to his head like this, and something came out of that arm. We can call it a laser, we can call it an energy beam, whatever you can imagine. And he said that the doctor's telling him, "I'm watching this crystal display, and it is so clear and so realistic. I feel like I can reach through it and touch his brain. And I'm watching this mass just shrink to where it's nothing." He says that took about 7 minutes. And he says, and then the arm put itself away, and the chair came up, and he took the virtual, reality goggles off of his patient. And the patient said, "Well, how did it go, doc?" And he goes, "You're healed." And he goes, "Well, what do you mean?" He goes, "It's all gone. There's no remnant that you ever had stage 4 terminal brain cancer." And he goes, "You're free to go and live your life." And he helped him out of the chair and walked him over to the door, and that was it. Now that's just one type. I'm hearing that they can replace damaged organs. They can help regenerate limbs. So people, let's say, take diabetics, people that have lost a limb, a foot, toes, etc. Those can all be regenerated. So any ailment that will be identified in the body through the initial appointment will then be taken care of in a follow-up appointment. Whether it takes 15 minutes or 18 hours, it's a one-stop shop. And we're going to walk out and be completely healed, completely new, better than new. We won't need medications. We won't need any of this stuff. Now, see, that's how you get to live another 200 to 250 years, Jesse, because your body isn't dying because of the things that they're giving us in the food and in the water and in anything else.
I
So
think that's a big one. What if we start getting like real nutritional food again, real food again? Like, is that, I know I heard there's some inner earth food that's supposed to be brought up to us that has real nutrition. Like, is this like potentially in the works where our food could be nutritious and healthy and healing again, opposed to the spray to peel all the, modified genetically GMO food, like stuff that's actually harming us? Is this in our near future?
absolutely. Absolutely. And see, it's going to be a journey. It's not a destination. So we'll walk this out. It's going to take time for things to roll out. But I've already been told that there's over 46,000 med beds dispersed around the United States already. And
On the ground, because maybe like 6 months ago we interviewed Elena Dunn, and she said that there was a whole bunch of med beds that were stored on the moon. And I'm not sure, and they weren't ready to come here yet. I'm not sure if that was the case, but so these are already on the ground med beds that are functional, and people are starting to use them already.
Well, the military, they've been using them in the military, and certain people in Congress have been using them. And I don't want to really name any names, but you ever noticed how one day they look like their face is falling off? And then the next time you see them 7 days later, they look like they're 14. And they've got the most beautiful skin you've ever seen. They had access to them. The cabal did. Because it was hijacked. They hijacked it all, trying to keep it for themselves because they wanted to be gods. They gave themselves over to a satanic oath, and they were responsible for, the child trafficking and the body harvesting and the adrenochrome and anything and everything for themselves. And at the same time, didn't want us here so they could have everything for themselves. But those days are over. They've been conquered. They've been taken out. And that's what's taking place right now in these last days. The Lord told me, he says, Dave, no evil is going into my new economy. That's the quantum financial system. It's his. He created it before time began. He took every possibility and made sure that he won in the end. And what the enemy, in scripture, says what the enemy meant for evil, God meant for good. And that goes along with exactly how everything transpired. And if I can, I'll just take a very, very short amount of time and I'll give the synopsis or the summary of how they took out evil. And it was ingenious. It really was when you think about it. And it's one of the things that I'm looking forward to with one of my humanitarian projects. And that is being able to have a production company, a studio, that puts together the films and the movies to talk about all this stuff that a lot of it I haven't been able to share. It wasn't time. But here's what God did. God entered into a 7,885 year contract with the devil, going back to Adam. The moment God brought his creation to earth, right? Because this earth it belonged to Satan and the fallen angels. It was theirs. It was their playground. God showed up with Adam, and the moment he did, Satan had a problem with that. Because if God was going to bring his creation, Satan wanted to be set free. And God said, well, I can't do that. He says, but here's what I will do. I'll give you 7,885 years to rule and reign on the earth so you can still kill and destroy because that's your nature. But at the end of that term, it all comes back to me, and you're bound. You're powerless. You can do nothing. Well, what does Satan think? Well, as long as God can't lift a finger to help mankind, his creation, this is a no-brainer for me. Because guess what I'll do? I'll teach him to be just like me, to still kill and destroy. And that's what's happened, Jesse. I asked the Lord, I said, Lord, what is the definition of sin? What does it really mean? And he said, Dave, it's a acronym: self-inflicted narcissism. That's our sin nature. But see, we agreed to it. We entered into a covenant with the Lord, and he said, if you will go and live on the earth in your sin nature, I promise I will provide you with a way back to me. And what comes to mind? Jesus. Jesus was the way for mankind to be redeemed, to come back to the Lord, to fulfill a covenant. And by doing so, see, that's the whole reason we're here. We're not here to be successful. We're not here to enrich ourselves. We're not here for anything other than to get back to the Father, like the scripture of the prodigal son. right? Because what happened when the prodigal son came back? He took his inheritance and he spent it on the world. And he partook of every worldly desire, every fleshly desire. And in the end, what happens? He's living in the pig pen. He comes back home. He comes to his senses. He comes back home to his father. And does his father immediately start beating him to the ground because he was a bad son and he wasted all of his inheritance? No. He welcomes him with open arms. He covers him with the finest coat and cloth. He gives him his authority with his signet ring. See, people don't realize that back in the day, your signet ring was your authority. If you put that impression or mark on a piece of paper, it carried weight, right? You always look about the documents. So he gave him that. And then he turned around, he killed the fatted calf, had a huge celebration, to the point where the younger son who stayed home was bickering as to, Dad, why did you do that for him? You never did it for me. And then the dad has to chastise the son, saying, son, you were always here. You were faithful. It was always available to you. But look, your brother is home. He's here. He's come home. Well, see, that's our Father. That's our God. Not the one that the devil made up, who says, oh, he just wants to punish you. Oh, he just wants to send you to hell. No, he just wants us back because we're fulfilling that covenant. And he made it so clear that this is the time we're going into. And this is why the enemy, through the minions, are trying to create a fence. Because it's that smallest infraction that separates us from God. And when we go through that process of being scanned, we just have that holding onto our heart, and it's evident. It's like people saying, oh, I can't wait till all this happens, and then I'm going to tell everybody, you shoulda, you coulda, you woulda. I told you, I tried to tell you about, X, and I tried to tell you about Z, but you wouldn't listen to me. No, that's not what it's about. It's about us laying it down. It's about us covering it with love. It's about understanding that, you know what, they just made a wrong decision. It's okay. But they didn't lose us. We never let go of them. But once that contract was over, now this is when God took control. 7,885 years. But he hid it in the Mayan calendar. The Mayan were taught by Enoch. The Lord sent Enoch to the Yucatan and said, teach them how to build the calendar. They have 18 calendars, by the way. The solar calendar that they created, we're actually going back to. We're going back to a 13-month, 28-day calendar. Because here's what happened. When the Babylonians and the Sumerians took us off a solar calendar, they separated us from the celestial energy that brought balance and harmony to life. Then when the Vatican in 1582 took us from the Julian to the Gregorian calendar, they permanently created chaos for us because we no longer were connected in our resonance with the universe. That's all going to be repaired. But see, when they did that, that enabled them to use their MK Ultra programming to influence us because we had no foundation, we had no base. And that's what a lot of people suffer from today. And it brings with it Stockholm syndrome, to where you could tell somebody, just like, I'm sure you've shared with many, many people as well as I have, about the glorious days ahead. And they call us crazy. Oh, you're a lunatic. But guess what's going to happen? They're going to come to find out that it was all the truth. And that's when we just love them more. That's when we just listen to them. We don't try to tell them shoulda, coulda, woulda. We don't try to tell them, hey, you know what? We don't tell them anything. We just let them get off of themselves, the trauma, because they're going to be carrying trauma over it. And this is where the medbed technology is going to help. I mean, if I could tell you some of the things I've heard from Space Alliance with regards to some of the missions that these warriors have been on, I mean, we've seen it in the movies. It's been happening since the 60s. You heard the story, you heard the series Stargate, right? It's true. Our military has been going through Stargates since the early 60s, and that's where the show came from. And a lot of the people that were in the show were people from Cheyenne Mountain, because that's where it was filmed, in Cheyenne Mountain, because that's where they have one of the Stargates. And this is how they've been transporting the medbeds through the Stargates.
Was there another one in Iraq, and why Iraq was invaded? Because they didn't want Saddam to have the Stargate. So that is true.
That's true. That's true. That was what Junior called the weapon of mass destruction. Stargate. Another one had been found in the Middle East, and they were trying to sell it to nefarious people. Now, they didn't get it back. They didn't find it. But one of the interesting things they found, and it was kind of a one-hit story, was they found 3 buried cargo containers with all of the documents from Nimrod. Think about that. Ancient historical documents from Nimrod. Now, that story appeared one time, and then it was buried, never to be talked about again. So we know that the Global White Hat Military Alliance has already seized all of that, just as they were able to seize all of the assets of the Vatican under Executive Order 13848 because of the Vatican's involvement in rigging the election, which they monitored in real time. President Obama had gone to the prime minister in Italy and gave him a $400 million offer that he couldn't refuse. And that gave them connection to the Vatican and the Vatican satellites. And they brought in a programmer who knew how to manipulate in real time. And they watched everything that he did in real time from their command center and how he switched all the votes. Well, once they went and got him, he spilled the beans. And then under the executive order, they were able to go ahead and remove all of the assets from the Vatican. Now, Charlie Ward was instrumental in that because he provided the logistics to the White Hat Global Military Alliance on how to transport all of the gold that was taken from the Vatican tunnels to Jerusalem and to Switzerland. That was about 42.956 quintillion, Jesse. 4 with 19 zeros. The gold was stacked up in the tunnels 13 levels high for the 13 bloodline families. And all of that had to be removed. It's all been removed in roughly 650 flights or thereabouts, plus a few more, and nine cargo ships. And it's been put into 3 facilities here in the United States: Cheyenne, Reno, and now they're saying some is in Fort Knox. But Fort Knox is, it's like a Dixie cup compared to a Big Gulp. It just doesn't have any storage facility. But all of that's been assayed. It's all been certified. And that's the gold that's backing the quantum financial system, which then ultimately backs the coin XRP, which is the key to connect or bridge the two parts of the quantum financial system through the XRPL, so that every single transaction around the world, every single day, is reported, recorded, and stored. Now, there is no limit to the storage capability of the quantum financial system in the 5th dimension. Just in the same respect, and I was able to prove this, and then 3 gentlemen won the Nobel Peace Prize proving this concept. And that is, whatever amount of transactions need to be processed around the world, the fifth dimension, quantum financial system, has no limit. So this comes back to XRP and my pricing discovery on XRP. So I'm kind of coming full circle here. After we submitted that second offer for $37,500 to the Federal Reserve and the U.S. Treasury Department, more information came out. And this is when the Lord began to reveal the quantum aspect of his new system. I went to Jimmy Valley and I said, Jimmy, everything that we thought has changed. We're no longer just 3D. We're now 5D. We're quantum. And do you know the definition of the word quantum, Jesse?
The definition of quantum. I think I've read about it, but I don't have it popping fresh in my head.
Okay, it's very simple. The definition of quantum is how much. How much?
Like in Spanish, cuanto cuesta, how much, quantum, cuanto, that would be the same
Exactly.
as Spanish.
Yeah, how much? So it's not defining anything. It's saying how much. How much money? How many transactions? What do you want to do? It's done. It's like the Lord. He created everything before time began. He worked through every single possible scenario for your life, my life, and every person listening today. And he gave that and made it available on earth at any time for us. The only difference is, do we recognize that he's the creator? Do we give him praise and thanksgiving for having already done it? And then we simply watch as the manifestation occurs through his Holy Spirit. See, that's one of the greatest revelations there is. Satan hijacked giving the Lord praise, and he called it praying. And the Catholic Church just continued to take control. So in the story of Daniel, it says Daniel prayed without ceasing for 21 days. And then the angel of the Lord showed up. He got held up over a battle of truth by the king of Persia. Archangel Michael had to come and defend the truth. And then the angel was allowed to continue to bring the word that Daniel had prayed for. Well, in the Aramaic, the word praise was changed to pray. So what it really meant was Daniel praised the Lord every single day during those 21 days, knowing that what he had been praising God for had already been created and was on its way. Get it?
Yeah.
And by doing so, what are we saying to the Father? Dad, I know you already did it. Kind of like this. This is my analogy. Mom and dad have a couple of kids. Let's say they have a 6-year-old and they have a 2-year-old. Well, the 6-year-old already got his tricycle. He already has his bicycle. And he's seen quite a bit of how mom and dad operate, right? Now the 2-year-old, he's on his trike. He's on his 3-wheeler. And what is the 6-year-old telling him? You're getting a bike real soon. You're getting a 2-wheeler. Well, his brother's driving a 2-wheeler and he wants a 2-wheeler. Well, dad's already bought the 2-wheeler because dad already knows he needs it. It's in the garage underneath the blanket. That's what a great dad does. And it's the same thing our Father has done. He put everything here on earth that we would need. That's why he revealed to me that gold. And I broke the revelation about gold from the Asian elders having an infinite supply of gold. They have a reserve of gold that flows like water. And they can tap into it whenever they want to. I recovered documents. I don't know how I found them, but I did. That showed that 7 years ago, they had mined and stored 100 quadrillion metric tons of gold, Jesse. 100 metric tons of gold. And let me give you a picture of what that looks like. It's a solid cube of gold that's 10.5 miles high, wide, and deep.
gold was never scarce. So a lot
Gold is
of this stuff,
never been.
like they always just tell us they're scarce in order for them to control things when
Mhm.
really things are abundant and flowing freely. And are we coming back into a time where things can be abundant for everyone again?
Exactly. Exactly. See, and what happened was the Asian elders, and this goes back to the God's plan to take out evil. The Asian elders, for thousands and thousands of years, going back to the emperors, China, Asia, etc., they were God's elected storehouse on earth. And see, God gave the devil that 7,885 years to steal, kill, and destroy. Well, God knowing this, he laid it up, right? It says in Proverbs 6, verses 30 through 31, and I'll paraphrase, don't be concerned with the thief who breaks into your house because he's hungry. But once he's known or caught, he has to return sevenfold, even if that includes his home. Okay? Well, sevenfold isn't 7 times. And they've been manipulating the Bible and removing sevenfold and putting in 7 times. So it doesn't mean that if someone stole $1 from you, you get 7 back. It means you get sevenfold. $1 times 7 is 7. That's the first fold. Then it's 7 times 7. That's 49. That's the second fold. 49 times 7, 342. Third fold. Times 7 again, all the way through the 7th fold. So by the time you get down to the end, that $1 is $823,543. Wow.
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 Huh.
Now think back of everything that the enemy has stolen from us. In every generation, all the way back to Adam. Now I'm 14th generation American. My grandfather was Miles Standish, Mr. Pilgrim, 1620. He led 40 other men anchored outside of Cape Cod on November 21st of 1620 to sign what was called the Mayflower Compact. That was their declaration of independence, their constitution on how they were going to run and handle the colonies as a government. They didn't make it to Plymouth until a month later because the conditions of the sea had pushed them off. But I ended up with actually 2 grandfathers. My other grandfather from the Mayflower was William Bradford, and then 3 grandmothers because 200 people left. And by the time they got there, 100 people survived. And then there were more deaths, and then people would remarry and remarry and remarry. So I ended up with 2 grandfathers and 3 grandmothers. So I have a long history in America through my lineage. I found that out. And then I found out that my cousin is W.D. Gann. And W.D. Gann is the one who was the, if you want to call him the master of Wall Street. He traveled to Egypt. He traveled all over the world breaking these codes, these sacred math codes that had been hidden, Da Vinci, etc. And he's the one that gave the information to JP Morgan, who then turned and crashed the market in 29. Now, W.D. Gann didn't know this was going to happen. He just reached out to somebody who was influential with information, and they used it for bad. So I kind of feel like part of my destiny is the righting of a wrong. And it was interesting. I mentioned another interview. I used to live in Washington State, and 45 minutes from my house was the W.D. Gann Institute. And I never went there, but I've always been so intrigued with regards to, the sacred math and everything else that, through the Lord's divine intervention, he's been showing me how to break math codes that have never been discovered. We just solved the mystery of the 819-year Mayan calendar, what it's all about. And the revelation just keeps flowing. So I'm excited about getting through all of this, being able to set up my production studio as one of my humanitarian projects and start putting all this information out there, which nobody knows about yet. I just get to hint on it. So there's so much more coming. But I say that, and again, coming full circle, is he pointed out everything that was going to happen with XRP and what was happening in the community. And mind you, think about this, Jesse. Let's just say you know nothing about bass fishing. And God says, "Hey, Jesse, come on over here. I want you to be my bass fisherman. I'm going to teach you how to bass fish. I'm going to build a platform for you. You're going to catch the world record. You're going to be notarized. You're going to know all these things. Why? Because I need you as my voice." And you show up and he's starting to just reveal all this stuff. And everybody's like, "How are you doing this, Jesse?" "I don't know. I'm just listening to the Lord. He's just telling me what to do. Throw the net on that side of the boat. Okay, it works." But that's been the part of the journey, is not who I am, but it's who he is, and what we learn and what he wants to share with us when we lean in, when we press in, when we spend time with him. So my day, I've had almost 72-hour days when he's dropping revelation and we're just working through things. This is kind of how it started. But one of the first things he had me talking about was the fact that Bitcoin and Ethereum were the largest sting operations in history. And it's been confirmed. Largest sting operations. Why? Because they were meant for evil. That's where the nefarious were trying to take control. I had 3 times to buy Bitcoin under $1, and not one time did I get permission to do it. But the moment he showed me XRP in 5 minutes, he said, "This is the one, Dave. This is the one. All in." And that's what I told my brother after I had returned with my answer. I said, "Chuck, it's XRP. The rest is up to you." And then I sat and watched it after it had gotten delisted. And the lawsuit happened. And I think your listeners will find this very interesting. Brad Garlinghouse was notified on December 21st of 2020 that the SEC was going to drop a lawsuit on Ripple. The very next day, on December 22nd, 2020, Jay Clayton, who was brought in under the Trump administration, dropped the lawsuit on Ripple. Now, I said that the contract ended with the devil on December 21st, 2020, the day the SEC informed Brad Garlinghouse. Why is that significant? Because if Jay Clayton had dropped the lawsuit prior to December 22nd, it would have violated the contract terms, because God would have lifted a finger to help mankind, and the devil would have reigned for all eternity. So it was strategic the day he did that. Does it make sense? Okay. So then about a month ago, about maybe 2 months ago, I'm doing an interview with Dr. Kia Pruitt. And we're talking about the contract and everything else. And I inadvertently said, "Oh, by the way, Dr. Kia, we're in that thing called the 7-year tribulation." And I said, "We're halfway through it, and that midpoint was December 21st, 2020. Well, I watched the video 4 times, and it wasn't until I watched it the 4th time that I actually heard myself say it. I had no recall that I said that. So then I went right back to my notes, and I said, "Okay, if December 21st, 2020 is the midpoint, what was the date 1,260 days before, which is 3.5 solar years? What was 7/11/17? 7/11/17. Of course, we're familiar with those numbers, right? 7/11 is 11/7, which is in the code for the Law of War manual. We have 17, which refers to Q. Well, that was almost to the date 2 months after Trump finished up his recapitulation tour and was given the sword by the king of Saudi Arabia, making him king. Basically saying, all of our trust is in you. because Trump had saved his life at the MGM Hotel when he was going to be assassinated, the king of Saudi Arabia.
The Vegas shooting?
Yeah. So he was able to get intel to him, and they were able to get him out the back door. He walked out just like a regular person. No one even knew. But part of their culture says, you saved my life, I owe my life to you. While being the king, you owe the entire country. So that was a significant date, 7/11/17. That takes us to 12/21/20. Well, then I said, well, wait a minute, what's 1,260 days, 3.5 solar years forward? And about fell out of my chair. It was June 2nd of 2024. Well, when I started all of this and I began to reveal this information, and David Schwartz was putting clues out there on Twitter, and I was breaking the clues. See, he got bored. He's a genius. He was brought in because he was part of the Bitcoin project. He was with Hal Finney. He was with Larry Page. It was him, and then it was Elon Musk 1.0. So Hal Finney was the programmer. Larry Page was the co-programmer. Larry Page is the one that slept on the couch in Hal Finney's apartment, which was on the corner of Satoshi and Nakamoto in Fremont, California. See, there's no Satoshi Nakamoto person. It's a group. It's these 4 gentlemen. The signs in Fremont have been stolen so much, I don't think they even put them up anymore. They renamed the streets. And then David Schwartz, he brought the connection to NSA and DARPA. And then Elon Musk brought the government money in that the CIA was using. So it was really a DARPA CIA project. It was Black Hat. But then David got pulled over to the XRP project. And that's when the White Hats took it over. So it went from being a Black Hat project, both Stellar and XRP. Because remember, it was about control, right? This was the central bank's new way of taking control through a digital coin. And that's what their intention was. So their intention for evil was thwarted by good, with the intention for good. So David was the one that was chosen because of his genius to be able to interpret what needed to be done on the XRPL in the 3rd dimension to make it function. See, the XRPL was not created to operate in the 3rd dimension, Jesse. That's why it only could do 1,500 transactions per second. And of course, everybody was like, yay, all right, patty clap. Well, God had already told me that whatever needed to be done in the 5th dimension would be done, would be available. My task was to try to figure out how much liquidity would be required to run a global economic system with all 209 countries being already signed on to BRICS and already signed on to Nassar Jassara. So as I'm working through this, I'm telling Jimmy, it's not the same. It's quantum now. It's how much? And of course, people were saying it, it's all about all the money, ATM, all the money. Well, Jimmy then starts a 3rd committee, and I'm on what the inner committee called the valuation committee with 6 other people. And we're asked to present our model for pricing XRP. And that covered everything from using basic business formulations to then my quantum calculation. So my number was in that right-hand 2% on a bell curve. And that's what went out in the committee report that was put together with the information that each of us submitted. See, each of us were like a Michelin chef. And we each brought our best dish to the table, all 6 of us. And everybody got to sample the dishes. It wasn't to determine which was the best meal. It was just to see what was available, what were the possibilities. Now, because mine was so far to the right, mine didn't gain any importance because it was a they called it an outlier. So we had valuations that went from 3,000 to 22,000. And that's what you see the media pick up on. So it's kind of like my valuations being hidden in a way. But I began to report on it right up front. And as more information was known, it increased. I mean, there was a point where we learned that the Federal Reserve had used each and every one of us, Jesse, and all of the real estate in the world to take out a $4.3 quadrillion loan through the Department of Water to build their dumb tunnels. They used you and I as collateral. And Jimmy got a hold of that document. Well, that document alone took the value of XRP up to $160,000. Just that document. But it really got no traction because the people were still caught up in the TA numbers. Oh, look, it's going to go to $1.73. Oh, it's going to go to $42. And then, of course, you had all of the talking heads in social media just playing it up as if they were instructed to make that the focal point. And if they did that, that's okay. Why? Because XRP wasn't for everybody. It's for those that are called. And you know it. You know if you're called when you see it. And if you're not called, you don't want anything to do with it. You want to be in, the Scooby-Doo coin, and you want to be in the Shaka Khan coin. And you're looking for that fast buck. You're looking for that action. And that's okay because they're not supposed to be in XRP. It wasn't meant for them. Because there's a higher calling on those that are called to it. And as I continued to work through my price discovery, once I went into the quantum realm, and I had already been leaking this information out for, almost a year before that third committee, I already had a valuation of $1 million on XRP. Now, it wasn't about XRP being $1 million. It was about it being given a value to carry of $1 million. The misnomer was people trying to make it like everything else in the sandbox. See, it was the gem. And what they had to do is they had to hide it. So they threw it into the sandbox with all the other crypto. Now, what's crypto mean? It means vault or dead. And that's why Brad Garlinghouse has said numerous times, 99.9% of all the crypto will be gone. So anything that's not ISO 222 compliant, and there's only 8 tokens, XRP is Cinderella or Snow White, and then we have the 7 dwarfs, and that is XLM, IOTA, etc. They're the workers. They're the ones that are going to take care of all the 3D action. XRP is that bridging the third to the fifth dimension. So it opens up the lock so that the data can transfer back and forth. Now, they didn't make XLM the master key. Otherwise, it would have been the XLM PL. No. Or XLML. No. XRP was the chosen token. But again, it's not a token. See, it's a key. And that's what the Lord's really been revealing with regards to that and how it opens up the fifth dimension and allows the liquidity to pass forward and backward in time. See, the fifth dimension already knows what the need is before it's even asked. And this is what was confirmed with these 3 gentlemen that won the Nobel Peace Prize in 2022. We get to the point where I'm saying, Jimmy, I know that the fifth dimension is going to be able to do $100 quadrillion in transactions. And it was like the next week, they announced the winners for the Nobel Peace Prize in physics, and they literally hand me the answer that whatever is needed in the fifth dimension, it's already, well, let me back up. Whatever's needed in the third dimension has already been made available in the fifth dimension. And it's interesting because it ties back to a dream I had. And I don't dream very often. But when I dream, it's prophetic. So I have this dream, Jesse. And in the dream, I'm standing in a room. And to give you perspective, if you were looking straight ahead, I'm a little bit to the right of center at maybe 5 o'clock, 4 o'clock. Einstein is at the chalkboard and he's up at 11 o'clock. And there's 3 gentlemen over to my right and I can't see them. But I can hear them. And they're telling Einstein, we have to get rid of the E. We have to get rid of the E. And that's the E in E equals MC squared. And I'm like bawling. And I'm just like, we can't get rid of the E. We can't get rid of the E. But I didn't understand the dream. Now I tell Jimmy Valley the dream I had. And of course, neither of us had any idea what it meant. I had nothing to tie it to. And then these 3 gentlemen come out and win the Nobel Peace Prize in physics, basically saying, no, we don't need the E anymore. It's X. And it's the function of XRP. So the Lord gives me a new mathematical calculation that replaces the third dimension, E equals MC squared. And it's the function of X. Have you ever seen how Ripple presents the X for XRP and it has like the brackets around it? Okay. That's the function sign. They already know it. They already know it. And then it's that function of X equals MC squared. But now that component is raised by a power of 4, because when you go from the third to the fifth dimension, it's an increase of 4 times. And then that's raised to infinity. So what it says is whatever it needs to be, it is. And it was the simplest little equation. And I'm like, how could it be so simple, Lord? And he goes, because that's how I designed it. It wasn't meant to be tough. He says, that's why science has a hard time understanding me and my power and how I set everything up. So he's giving me revelation to write new mathematics for this stuff. I got through algebra 2, Jesse, in college. Okay. Go figure. Go figure. He didn't choose another Einstein to receive this revelation. He chose simple Dave, who was there with him every single day, waiting to hear what he said, waiting to receive what he wanted to reveal, knowing that he had already taken care of everything before time. And I was the chosen mouthpiece to do this. It's been the wildest ride of my entire life. I don't get paid a penny. I haven't been paid a penny. He literally stripped me of everything that I had before we got started. He took a high six-figure trading account that I spent 30 years building, and he took it all away in 2 days. And he left me with $1,200 so I could move to Arizona with my wife. And this is what he said. And I fought him on it. Don't fight God. Let me tell you, do not fight God. I resisted, but you never win. And when I finally got to the point where I felt his arms wrap around me, there's nothing like that feeling. I said to him, I started to laugh. I said, Father, I said, you created all this anyway. Do whatever you want with it. But there wasn't anything I could do to stop it, Jesse. What would have been a marginal loss in a trade was 6 figures. And I just watched it go. I said, okay, Lord. But this is what he said. He said, Dave, I had to help you understand that nothing from the old system is coming into my new economy. And I had to take it away from you so you could help others understand it too. So all the stuff that we thought we were going to bring in, like, people think that we're bringing in the stock market and we're bringing in all these, investment tools and things like that. That's not what his new economy is about. He's not providing all of this, all these resources, because it's not wealth. We didn't create it. We can't call it wealth. It's an inheritance. It's part of what we receive coming back to him. Because he said, when you come back to me, you gain your royal title as son or daughter of me. And you receive one of the two inheritances I have for you. One is an earthly inheritance, and that's what we're receiving now, everything that was stolen, plus more. And he says, and then there'll be a heavenly inheritance when you come to be with me in the spirit realm. So it's like I'm looking at the little bit that I had to give up of the world and my sin nature. And it took me 18 years to get rid of my sin nature, by the way. I was terrible. I stole, killed, and destroyed and did it in the name of success. And people still do that today. Oh, look at me. Look what I've achieved. Hey, I'm the, XYZ. And then what do people do? They want to be just like them. Well, they became what they were because the devil convinced them to be like him. See how it worked? Still, kill, and destroy. How many people have I want to use the right terms. I don't want to use profanity. Taken advantage of people in business deals. And then became worshipped for having done so. Because they were a success. They killed people, careers, lives. But see, that's not what it's about going forward. It's about the children. It's about the fact that now our world will no longer be based on our sin nature. It's going to be based on love. Love is the currency, love is the language, and love is the foundation of heaven. That's what everything is being based on going forward. It's not on how much did you make on your money. Hey, what kind of return are you getting? How much interest are you earning? Are you staking? No, none of that applies going forward. Because it's not what God desires in his economy. I mean, hallelujah. There's going to be children that are going to be born that will never know what evil was, Jesse. They're our future. They're our legacy. They're the ones that are going to be here 400, 500 years from now. We're paving the way for the spotless bride. And that's what the Lord told me. You're the pioneers. You're the ones that have been chosen to carry everything forward. And by doing so, you can't have a spotless bride if you ever have evil. And this is where Satan and the Vatican Church led everybody astray. Thinking. And the rapture was created. I've been posting on that. I remember when he gave me the revelation that the rapture was not intended to bring Christians to heaven. It was intended to get evil to hell. And that's what's been taking place. There's going to be more taking place. There's 500,000 sealed indictments right now. Each indictment can have up to 99 people, Jesse. This is round to 100. 100 times 500,000. That's 50 million people gone. Well, they're not being taken to prisons. They're not being taken to Gitmo. They're being raptured in the Latin, taken away permanently. And I had a slide that I did from July of 2022. It was a gentleman who was monitoring the sun. And he'd been doing it for 9 years. And mind you, I put out that video, and here he is. Imagine you're getting ready to, like we're doing a live show right now, right? Thank you everybody for your participation, by the way. This is an awesome gentleman. Keep following him. Keep tagging everybody and letting them know to connect to his platforms. Just the 10 minutes I had before we started, I just can't believe this gentleman. He's fantastic.
Thanks, man. We've got over 350 people here live with us right now.
Fantastic.
Please like, subscribe, share this out, reach as many people as possible. And I got angel bumps. I keep getting angel bumps when you're talking. Like I said before, I can see things, and I've always had faith that we can make this into a better place. And when you talked about, I was just on a live, I think yesterday, or maybe it was the day before, and someone said, well, that'll never happen. And I'm like, well, that'll never happen if people believe it'll never happen. You have to have faith that we can make this into heaven like it's truly supposed to be here.
It is. And one of the things that the Lord revealed, Jesse, this was on October 22nd, 2022. And he declared, he said, this is my time. This is my plan, my age. And this is my people, my land. Our hearts are his land. He's the vine dresser. He's the one that takes care of the field. Now, what's happened for us? We've let the weeds grow. And of course, we all know that there's the parables of planting. You don't plant in rocky soil. You don't plant in soil with weeds, et cetera, et cetera. Well, he's talking about us, each one of us. And during that 10 days of disclosure, followed by 3 more days of announcements, this is our time, if we haven't come back to the Lord, to see what lies have been told. We've been lied to our entire life. I mean, I don't know if I should say this or not, but I will. They just convicted the Pope.
Wow, which the current Pope, or?
Yes, of child trafficking, of rape, and several other things, along with several other people at the Vatican level. And of course, there's many more associated with that. He literally took a pledge, a demonic pledge to Satan, as it's been acknowledged through some documents that they obtained from the Vatican. And every pope has had to do that. And that's been hidden from us. And this is all information that's going to be made known. So, get ready. It's going to be a real eye-opener. But it prepares us for what we're heading into, which is infinite wisdom. See, even one of the things that I'm getting ready to report on with the calendar, it talks about once we're back in sync with the celestial universe, we advance in our resonance, in our consciousness far beyond where we are right now. I mean, we've basically been dumbed down. And I'll tie this into XRP. They had to dumb down the XRPL operating in the 3rd dimension because it wasn't built to function here, and that's why it could only do 1,500 transactions. Well, in my price discovery, I'm tying the price of XRP to the 7-fold blessing amount to transaction speed. They're all related, and I put that out in a prior video I did with James 68J. Blew him away. He couldn't believe it. But see, it's kind of like the ability for the information that I'm putting out there to get out there is being suppressed. But if I was talking about something else, like the Shikaka coin or something else, I'd have 12 million followers, because I'm talking about nothing, things that aren't important. Yeah, it's part of the camouflage, part of the distraction for people. But we come back to that 1,500 transactions, and this is so funny. As I'm putting out the information, Jesse, tying the price of XRP literally to the speed, Brad Garlinghouse comes out and he says, "Oh, by the way," he says, we're going to be increasing the speed or the number of transactions per second to 3,400 to 3,800. And I'm like, what? And as I said in the other interview, who looked behind the curtain and saw the knob? Did nobody know the knob was there? Well, of course they did. But what he was doing is he was acknowledging the information that I was putting out there, tying these all back to price, was 100% correct. And he's done that on more than one occasion, using terms like orders of magnitude and things like that, which I'll talk about base 10 math. And that's the basic premise of how you arrive at liquidity. So what he did was he raised the number of transactions per second to equal $1 million valuation for XRP. Now that's not the, I don't want to put this, that's not the most telling detail. Here was the most telling detail. When we were in the valuation committee, we had to figure out what all the money meant. And now we're finding out that the Asian elders for centuries had been loaning money to the 300 largest deep state Luciferian cabal, Khazarian mafia banks, Federal Reserve, BIS, etc. And in the committee, that document was made known. So here you have God's storekeepers of the wealth going to the evil people and saying, we're open for business. Who needs to borrow money? And remember, I told you I was going to tell you how the fall of the cabal happened. Well, we went through the financial crash, and I'm drawing a blank. Ben Bernanke, who was the Fed chair at the time, he came out and said, we've had to lower interest rates to 0 to 25 basis points. If we raise interest rates just 0.25%, it'll bankrupt the world. See, that was a tell. He was telling us what was going to happen. So then Jerome Powell comes in. Interest rates just continue to stay 0 to 25 basis points forever. But by doing so, the cabal, when they saw that Trump wasn't going to stay in office, they went in, Jesse, 600 to 1. They leveraged 600 to 1 because interest rates were never going to go up, right? Well, Jerome Powell is telling everybody, well, maybe we'll raise rates in 2026. Well, the Lord already told me rates were going up in 2022 in the first quarter. And I'm posting on this. And he even gave me the rates by period on what the increase would be and where we would be at the end of the first year. And it was 100% accurate. So now he's saying 2026, and then a couple months later he says, well, maybe, second half of 2025. Well, it all accelerates, and within less than 3 months, he went from 2026 to next month. Well, how could the cabal plan for such a disaster? They couldn't. So when he came out with his first increase of 50 basis points, it bankrupted them because they were leveraged 600 to 1. All around the world, the central banks all went bankrupt. And then they just continued to increase the interest rate. And that allowed the Global White Hat Military Alliance to go in under executive orders, Executive Order 13848, and then it was 13818. And this had to do with affecting elections. And that's where they went in and seized all the assets. They seized the New York Stock Exchange, the S&P 500, the NASDAQ. They seized every single market exchange in the world. BlackRock, State Street, and Vanguard owned 88% of the S&P 500. Not anymore. A little over 6 months ago, the company that provided all of the real-time data to the markets around the globe, which went through Bloomberg and everybody else, they fired or canceled their contract with every one of those companies, including the dealers and brokers. They were no longer allowed to use that data. What do? Well, you're basically out of work. But what did they do? The white hats came in and applied an algorithm that they control. So the stock market isn't really happening the way it used to. While the cabal controlled all the data, the white hats are now in control of the data, and they've been pushing the stock market up to take care of their guarantee of all the retirement accounts. So anybody that has a retirement account, that account is being mirrored onto the quantum financial system in an account in your name called a quantum access account. There's nothing you need to do. You don't need to move money out of the bank. You don't need to move anything out of your retirement account, because your bank account is also being mirrored in your name in real time. So it's guaranteed. So you don't have to worry about what's happening in the banking world. All of the central banks are powerless as of April 11th, when he signed us into the BRICS Accord. So they're out of business. We're never going to have CBDCs. There's never going to be digital tokens. Klaus Schwab, he's dead. And all these other people at the top, they're gone. They've already been taken to the lake of fire, which is the sun. And of course, what did God do? He made it so we could see it every day. We just didn't know it was hell. And I actually have a picture, and I was talking about the gentleman who was watching the sun. In his video, it's live, because he didn't know what was going to show up as he's recording. And all of a sudden, all of these, he calls them craft, that he's been monitoring, going in and out of the sun regularly. Thousands of them are going towards the sun. Just these little white cubes. They're attached in either strings of 3 or strings of 5. They were taking people already to hell, evil to hell. And a lot of the craft that we see in the sky showing up right now, like my brother sent me pictures of stuff showing up over San Diego looking south. You know, like Tic Tacs showing up in the sky and moving around. They're just waiting for the next wave to take them up and away. That's how it's happening. We have help. We have off-planet help. And that's all connected to the Space Alliance. So we don't have to worry about anything. We don't have to be wasting energy on the narrative, which is all fake. The World War III battle between Iraq and Israel, it's fake. It's the narrative. There are people on the ground that are already reporting. I got some of that intel just the other day. They're saying nothing's happening. There's no bombs going off. There's no buildings being blown up. They're using old footage from old wars, and they're putting it in front of people's eyes. And because people can't retain information, they don't know that that was filmed 7 years ago. They don't know that that's an area that has already been demolished and hasn't been rebuilt. That's what they focus on. But it's important, Jesse, and here's why. The White Hat Military Alliance uses AI, and it's called Adam, rightfully so. Well, Adam has to release the codes to allow the 5 people that have information to shut down everything, to turn off the stock market, to launch the emergency broadcasting system, and then that brings in Nasara, redemption centers, etc. So it all has to come from Adam. They can't just do it on their own. And it takes the appearance of a World War III for Adam to be triggered. And that's what's happening. So behind the scenes, China is already taking care of Taiwan, getting rid of all of their underground tunnels, rescuing the children, getting rid of the biolabs, and then they're going to help Taiwan rebuild. They're not going to take over Taiwan. They've already said so. They're not launching war on Taiwan. They're there to help get rid of evil and then help them rebuild, because it's going to take time, and they don't have the technology that China does. So that's already been taken care of. Israel is last. A lot of the reports that have come out for years have said Israel will be last because they were the worst. And those people are already being dealt with. So Israel, the land, was a byproduct of Rothschilds and the Khazarian Mafia, the Khazars, who were the fake Jews, Jews. Whereas the real Jews, those of Jacob, the lineage, the 12 tribes, they're the Juws, because they're the lineage. See, Israel was never intended to be a land. It's a lineage. When God gave the promised land over to his people that he removed from Egypt, he didn't say, oh, by the way, we're going to call this Israel. No, he said, you are the people of Israel, meaning the lineage from Jacob.
Israelites.
Yes, and they became Israelites once they left Egypt. They were Hebrews before that. Israelite means those that flee. So when the second time when God told Moses to go to the Pharaoh, that's when he said, let my people go. The first request, and a lot of people don't understand this, was that when God sent Moses in the first time, it was to get Pharaoh's permission so that they could go one day out of the week into the desert to praise and worship God. Now, God already knew Pharaoh wasn't going to allow that, but it had to be done first. And then when he denied that request, that's when God sent Moses in the second time to demand that he set his people free. And that's when the plagues and everything else came. But you have to remember, Moses was raised in that house. And there was a reason why God had him raised in that house, because he knew that Pharaoh wouldn't come against him. It was like a son. His sister's son grew up in his house with his son. And when you look at these relationships, you just go, wow, that's how it all happened. Because anybody else that walked in there, they would have just killed him on the spot. But Pharaoh never touched a hair on Moses' head. But it's not taught. People aren't educated to that fact. They go to church and they get entertainment. And the pastoral world has sold out to entertainment. It's sold out to ego. It's sold out to their wallet, their wealth. And all that's changing. And a lot's going to be exposed very, very soon. So expect big changes to come.
Church not supposed to be on Sunday. It's supposed to be the Sabbath. It's supposed to be, they changed it to the Sunday, this worship the sun, as you said, the hell realm, worshiping hell, worshiping the Sunday worship is really taking a lot of people astray.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And when you don't have pastors that are ministering with revelation, they're not communing with the Father. They're buying their sermons online because they're too important to spend time with God. I mean, he's revealed things to me, Jesse, that I had to ask him, Lord, why are you sharing this with me? And he said, Dave, you are the only one who chose to be with me. And I'm not excluding myself as the only one, but it's like, at this moment, Dave, where are my children? And the answer is, people are afraid to spend time with God because of how Satan has twisted his nature. They think they're going to be punished. Hey, believe me, I had a sin nature, but I never let go of God. And he told me I had to work through it. It took me 18 years. 18 years ago, when I stood in the gap for people, and at the end, after he said, you have at least 50 more years, and he said to me, he says, Dave, I can't give you right now what you've asked me for. He said, because if I did that, I would lose you to the world. Think about that for a minute. How many people have been lost to the world because they got what they wanted? They got the fame, they got the glory, they got the money, they got the title, they got the position. And the enemy just used it to take them over. They don't even think about God. They're too busy, being high and mighty. Hey, look how many people I have following me. Hey, look at how many people watch my videos. Well, that's just ego. That's that sin-natured narcissist coming out. That was the same traits that Satan had, and a third of the angels that went with him. But when you let that go, and you understand that we're the zero, see, and I'm not. Let me take that back. Zero meaning zero, not some hand sign from, the cabal. That's not what I'm doing. So I don't want to see one message coming to me about, oh, you're flashing this. I'm not. Believe me, I'm not. I know the difference. Okay. And if I ever did do it in the past, it was because I'm a certified scuba diver. And that's the hand signal to tell the dive master, you're doing okay. Okay. It's a recognized hand symbol underwater. So that's how I learned to say I'm okay. So I'm okay. But here's what's so important. And I laugh when I have to explain that, because like, if people can't figure out what I'm all about now, they never will. I have hope that one day they will. And that day's coming when they have time to do that, Jesse. But right now, this is what God told me. He said, Dave, this has been a journey, not a destination, to get people to agree with what I have you share. Now, when the revelation was finalized and we realized that the ability to find out the pricing for XRP, see, I said pricing, not price, pricing. It means it was determined through something else. See, the formula is actually very, very simple. It's all the money, divided by the 100 billion minted tokens, and that equals a value. So if I took 100 and then divided it by 10, the solution is 10. But I can't start at 10 and try to figure out how to get to 100, because I won't have a value big enough at the bottom. So what happened is the only way to quantify what all the money was to use the gold that the Asian elders had put up for Nasara Jasara. Now, I said they were the storehouse, right, Jesse? God chose them to be the storehouse. And I already said that 7 years ago, they had 100 million metric tons of gold. Okay. That was worth 6.895 septillion. Yeah. That's a huge number. Now on July 24th, 2022, the Asian elders met with our Treasury Department and President Trump. And they signed an agreement where the Asian elders were putting up 1 followed by 45 zeros. That's one quattro, like 4 quattro decillion. Okay. Just taking the gold, the metric tons of gold, 100 quadrillion metric tons of gold, that all by itself, if we divided that amongst 8 billion people on the planet of Earth, would provide to each person $871 trillion. Trillion. Okay. That's just what they already had mined and stored. That was their second smallest amount of gold. The gold that came out of the Vatican tunnels from Vatican to Jerusalem, Vatican to Israel. That was the 43 quintillion, 4 with 19 zeros. So we went from that to then the septillion. I mean, there is so much money that they have made available. This is how the storehouse is basically taking over the need for repairing the finances of the world. For everything that the enemy stole. God laid it up, had them lay it up, gave them the resource. Never-ending supply of gold. Never-ending. And they turned around and loaned it to evil. So when evil thought, right, that was in control, they just borrowed more. And when they stole it, they let them borrow more. That's how we went off of the gold standard in 71. The U.S. had borrowed $200 billion worth of gold from the Asian elders. A week before the final payment was due in August, the chairman of the Federal Reserve went to Dick Nixon and said, "Dick, we can't pay the loan back." They all run off to Camp David. They're gone for 7 days. They come back. And on the 15th of August of 1971, Nixon says, "We're going off the gold standard." Why? When we went off the gold standard, Jesse, they fractionalized our currency because now there didn't have to be backing for anything.
License to print money.
So exactly. The $1 bill is the only real money. So anything with a higher denomination, you put that below 1. So 1 divided by 10 is 10 cents. 1 divided by 100 is a penny. So by fractionalizing the currency, they paid back that $200 billion loan in gold with $100 bills that they printed equal to 1 penny. 1 penny for every $100. And then that's how they acquired everything on the planet for a penny on every $100.
Wow.
Yeah, that's why they took us off the gold standard. And then Kennedy was bringing it back in 63, and he had already made an agreement with one of the ministers and agreed to buy gold, get gold, which was then going to allow him to back the currency with silver. And then 7 days later, he was assassinated. Or 14 days later, he was assassinated. That's why he was assassinated, because he was taking the Federal Reserve out of the picture. Now, mind you, it didn't just start with him. It goes all the way back to Abraham Lincoln. And Abraham Lincoln was brought into office by, I think it was either 12 or 20 generals who got him into office as president to abolish slavery. And then, of course, he was assassinated because of what he was doing. Well, Kennedy is actually related to Abraham Lincoln. And we're going to see how that lineage plays out during that 10 days of disclosure and who's related to who. And we're going to find out that certain people that we think are dead are not. And he's not. He had a double that was assassinated. He got word through the generals of what was going to happen. And his double agreed to take the bullet. JFK Jr. is still alive. Princess Diana is alive. All these people went into witness protection. And I bring that up because that's what the Lord told me about XRP. Gary Gensler has been made to be the bad guy. He's not. He first started with the CFTC, which is the commodities side of the market. He was then, before that, he was a partner at Goldman Sachs. So he's a partner at Goldman Sachs. He's then running the CFTC. He then goes into the White House under the Obama administration. After that, he's working with Hillary with her campaign. He was gathering intel from Hillary to pass up to the White Hats, so they knew what was going on. He then has to leave because all these people cycle through. Ben Bernanke, Yellen, Jerome Powell. They come in and they come out in the government, in the education system, stock market, and they just cycle through. It's like, these are the best people we're going to use, and they're working with us, so we're just going to maneuver them through. So he has to leave. He has to go away. He ends up at MIT. Ripple spent $50 million in grants to 17 universities to teach blockchain. So Gary Gensler goes to teach blockchain, all about Bitcoin. And I have all of the materials from his course. I've got the videos, I've got the transcripts. And he says in 2018, Ethereum is a security, XRP is not. And then he says, you just built your coin and you want to take it to the bankers. How do you get them interested? He says, you're going to have to do just like another person did, and you have to give them 50% of your equity. This has happened with every major company on Wall Street: Facebook, Intel, Microsoft, Cisco. The SEC is the mafia. They were the mafia. They controlled Wall Street. You didn't function unless they said you could. And when you first came out of the gate with your IPO, they then crashed your stock, which then allowed you to give up 50% of your equity to the bankers. And then after that was completed, they let your stock go back up. Because then who was then praising your stock? The bankers, who were the ones that gave all of the financial forecasts. We've moved Facebook from a buy to a super buy. And we've taken a price target of $25 to $200. Well, then what happens with all the brokers? They start putting all their people in it. It goes up. But see, what happened is now XRP gets the lawsuit. And now we got to bring in the bad guy, Gary Gensler. Gary Gensler was the protection. He was the marshal. He was the witness protection program for XRP. But they had to make him out to be the bad guy so that on the street, people would dump it. People wouldn't go and invest in it, right? Only the called would know. And the other people would go jump into, Shikaka Coin and all the others. And that's exactly what's happened. You've had people that got into XRP, 7 years ago with huge bags. And because the price didn't go up like all the other ones did, right? The shiny things got their attention and they dumped all of their XRP and ran into those other coins. And some did very well. Other people were financially devastated and won't ever recover until we go through the redemption from sorrow to sorrow. But it's been planned the whole time. It's part of the narrative. And I from day one, I talked about the fact that, we were going to see a kinder and gentler type of SEC, type of Federal Reserve. Now, we won't have the Federal Reserve. We won't have the SEC. They'll be renamed. And both of them have already been pulled under the U.S. Treasury Department. So they don't operate on their own anymore. They're powerless. The Federal Reserve is just a board now. And they were intended to be a board just to handle compliance for the National Tax Agency, which is the name for the IRS, the new name for the IRS, dealing with our new 14% consumption tax, because income tax is out the window. it's illegal anyway. It was never approved, even though the IRS decided to just go in and tax. But see, they did that being able to blackmail and bribe our politicians. You know, that answers that question. Well, how do you come in with a net worth of 250,000 and then leave with a $400 million net worth? Because they all take the bribe. And even when they compromise them, which they do, they know now that they're compromised, they have to do exactly what they want them to do. And then they make sure that they win the election to stay in. But under the new rules, under NESARA, there is no term guarantee. There's actually limitations. And the government is going to lose 90% of the people involved in politics and government. And it's all going to be run on 10% of what it used to be. So, you know, it's going to be really streamlined. But I already did a calculation. I don't know if you saw it at any point in time, but when you consider the fact that they're going to split the 14% national consumption tax with the states, that's how we have no state income tax. And when the government takes that with the increased GDP, right, spending that comes from tens of quadrillions of dollars coming into the global economy, I've already calculated that by the year 2030, Jesse, the economy will be growing at 22.5% per year. Unheard of. But it's because of all the money that's going to be able to move. See, your couple thousand of XRP. See, when we go to the redemption center, and I'm going to tie this in.
Just one sec. Just one sec. I need to respond to this comment because this is, I think, important for you. Okay. Isabel from our Facebook says, blown away with all this information. Part was confirmation. Just wow. I have a private message from a Dave XRP with the same avatar, pick and name. I hope it's our brother Dave here because I've been punked by bots on X. It's not. So I just wanted you to maybe say there's a lot of people that are out there trying to scam people with your name. And that's why I said this. This is why I say this is important just to stop to make this.
Let me address that. I'm only on Twitter at XRPLion #1. I'm only on Rumble to produce educational videos. And Jesse can put that, or I'll put it in post, so you know that. I do have a Twitter account. I'm sorry, I do have a Telegram account. I'm not using it. But I have hundreds of imposters and bots on Telegram, Gmail, Facebook, everywhere. And they're all trying to convince you that they're going to help you get onto the QFS system with your digital assets. They're saying such things as, oh, we can help you set up a QFS account. No, you already have a quack, a quantum access account on the QFS. There's nothing you need to do. That's why I said, you don't do anything. It's all taken care of for you already. Your bank balance is mirrored onto your quack account. Nobody's going to set you up with an account. These are the scammers, and they are ripping people off of their digital assets. I get at least 2 to 3 messages a day. Wow, thank goodness I found your page and I realized that you're verified on Twitter with the check, and you're verified on Rumble with the check. If you don't see that, that's not me. And they use every variation of XRPLion, XRPLion 1. They use different characters. They add a dash. They do double I's. They make an O, which is a 0. It's not me. It's not me. I don't email people. I don't have anything to sell. I don't respond to comments in Rumble. I'm not on WhatsApp. See, they're operating out of WhatsApp. I actually was able to pretend to be somebody else and communicate with them. And they'll say, oh, you can only communicate with me through WhatsApp. Or, you know what? You'll see comments that say, hey, I can help you do this. Here's my email address. And they're on Gmail or Outlook. It's not me. It's not me. So you're only gonna see what I post on Twitter. You're gonna see me in interviews like this with Jesse, and then you're gonna see me on the videos that I produce from Rumble that are getting uploaded to Before It's News, and they're going through the entire social media stream. But I don't respond to that. So Jesse, thank you for bringing that up. It's very, very important.
Yeah, I remember you talked about that a little earlier before you got on, that there was people out there with fake accounts, and she's a long time supporter here of the missing link, and I
Mhm.
just wanted to make sure she wasn't being scammed by anybody, especially after hearing you here
Right.
today. So I thought it was good that we did address that here.
Yeah, if you own digital assets and you own one of the ISO 222 compliant, there's nothing you need to do. Now, I will say this: if there's anything for you to do, is to make sure that you don't have it on a platform. So it's not in Uphold, it's not on Binance, it's not on Lobster. Lobster is the worst. It's the biggest scam in the world. Absolutely the biggest scam. I uncovered that scam, gosh, over a year ago, helping somebody get their XRP and their XLM off of the fchain.io. And what we found was, and this has already been proven, the moment you come in to that platform to buy into the fictitious lie that the white hat military has seized assets and they're making those assets available for sale for XLM, for 2XLM, you need to run for the hills. Because the moment you put your XLM or XRP in, they convert that into these fake assets. There's no market makers, there's no market, and it's a giant Ponzi scheme. Now, as of, almost a year ago, they had stolen over 16 million XLM. And think of it like this: if you walked in with a whole bunch of money to Vegas in a casino, they would send you over to the cage to convert your currency into house chips. Well, what are they doing? They're literally wrapping your money with their token. And that's what they were doing on Lobster. So what would happen is you'd put your XLM in, and then you would go and sort through this list of assets, all fake, by the way. And it would say, okay, I want to buy this one. Well, I can buy 1,200 million shares for 2XLM. People, come on. If you're that gullible, stop. But what we did is, with my friend, we went in, and thankfully there was enough people still buying the con. So he had somebody to sell it to. We then turned around and converted it to XRP, because you can't move XLM directly out of fchain.io on Lobster, on the wallet. The only way to get it off of their system is you have to run it through and convert it to XRP. We moved the XRP through his Nano Ledger, because the Nano Ledger is just a platform. It gives you 24 keys to claim ownership. Nothing sits on that Nano. Nothing sits on any external device. Every digital coin that is made has to be put onto the XRPL. So think of the XRPL as this huge shopping cart or filing cabinet. And it has drawers, and in the drawers are files. The brokerages and the platforms are a file. And as long as you're in that brokerage or that platform, your purchases are in that file, reported under the owner of the file. In this case, Binance, Uphold. Now, it wasn't always that way in the beginning. When Uphold first got started, it was the only platform to acquire XRP after the lawsuit and the delisting. Unbeknownst to us, they took what was a segregated account, meaning separated, and they took all the accounts that they had and they consolidated them into an aggregated account, Jesse, in their name. And in their system, we were given a destination number. So it's kind of like, let's say that you had a storage unit in one of the storage warehouses and you had the keys. And then all of a sudden you realize your key doesn't work anymore. And they say, well, oh, you have to come to us and then we open the door for you. How comfortable do you feel about your stuff? You don't feel real comfortable anymore, do you? Now, let's say that something happened and now all of their records were destroyed and they don't know what unit you had. You're saying, hey, I was in unit 1220 and I want to get my stuff out. Well, what proof do you have that you were the owner of unit 1220? Well, you have the records. Well, yeah, but you should have something. Well, see, that's why they don't issue statements. You ever think about that? Why don't these platforms issue statements? Because they've taken and put everything that you've purchased into their name. This was all part of the theft. This is all part of the plan that the Lord sent me to reveal. So the plan was with the cabal, they'd shut the whole system down. Everybody would lose everything because the records were destroyed. And nobody had records to prove what was theirs.
Wow.
Now think about the bank. What did the bank do? Well, we can give you an e-statement and we'll just send you the e-statement every month and you don't have to pay the $8 service charge if you want a paper statement sent to you. Well, how many of us just went, well, I don't want to pay $8. I'll just take the e-statement. How many of us print it off every month? How many of us keep a screen print, print it off, hard copy of our balances? See the plan? And I was told about this in 1974 by my brother-in-law, who was probably the ultimate conspiracy theorist. And he had heard from a gentleman named Tex Ritter. Tex Ritter was a singing cowboy who ran for Senate. Unfortunately, he didn't make it in, but he was very well connected with what was going on. See, and this is that post-Kennedy year. And what he said is we're going into a new currency. Well, why? Because we have to get rid of organized crime. We have to get rid of the drug traffickers. We have to get rid of all of the illegal money. Well, how do we do it? Well, we just announced that on starting this date, people have 5 days to turn in their currency. Now, if you come to the bank with too much money, they're going to take you in the back room. You're going to be interrogated. And when you can't prove where it came from or why you have it, they're going to seize it. Well, it's kind of like what is happening in Zimbabwe right now with their new gold zig. They made it very well known in their press release that if you had over $100,000 of ZWL, which is the 2008, 2009 bonds, that you were going to be interrogated. And if you couldn't prove where it came from or why you had it, you would lose it. Because they know there's nefarious money out there. There's counterfeiting, etc. So you can see how all this comes into play. And that's why with everything that's going on right now, it's all burning to the ground. They're already cutting the internet cables. We're not going to have this internet. Anything that's on the cloud or on your computer is going to be permanently lost. So you need to get it off of your computer, off of the cloud, off of your iPhone, off your iPad, onto a completely separate external hard drive. And you can't leave it plugged into a computer. And I'll tell you why. I just revealed this last night and the video hasn't even come out yet. I learned, oh gosh, how many years has it been? Let's just say 6. I learned 6 years ago that there's a company named after a vodka company or a brand that was given permission by Congress to install a kill switch on every computer motherboard. Raise your hand if you knew that. I don't see any hands. Okay. I released this information months ago. But what was it designed to do? It was designed, the way it was sold was, well, we have a lot of sensitive information out there. These big companies, they have salespeople, they have managers, they're losing laptops at the airport. And that's very sensitive information. We need to keep it from falling into the wrong hands. So we're going to basically, well, let me scratch basically, shouldn't be using that term. They have the power with one switch to shut off all of those laptops, desktops, you name it, and it just becomes a brick. Nothing can ever be retrieved from it.
Kill switch.
Kill switch. Yeah, that's what I call it. Now, is it bad? Not necessarily. Why? Because if you're trying to keep nefarious stuff from coming back onto the new QFS, right? There'll be a time when we can upload into our Quantum Access account music and other things that we want to store there. But here's the catch. Nothing nefarious, no pornography, nothing with suggestive lyrics. All of that goes out the window. And if that stuff tries to get loaded on, you're going to be flagged. And now you're going to be watched even more because you're trying to bring evil into a pure system. That's what it's about. It's not about, your privacy. People, we all gave up our privacy when we picked up a smartphone, when we allowed it to listen into every single conversation. How do you think they caught evil? NSA, which the acronym is Nothing Stays Anonymous. They listen in on every conversation, even now. And we don't even think twice about what we say with our phone 2 feet away. Well, see, that was the system that was brought in under Obama to basically figure out how to control us all. So when they wanted to bring something against us, they could figure out something. What we took pictures of, what we had videos of, what we said, all of that. That's why it's all basically going to be just turned off. And the entire system is going to be encapsulated and probably sent to hell because we don't need it anymore. It's not part of our economy. It's not part of who we are. Those people that have let go of their self-induced narcissism are going to be the ones that go through the redemption center, not the ones that have it. They're going to be gone. They're not going to be allowed into the new economy. So you can see how important it is to understand these little tiny things. So if we can understand the scammers and the bots and the trolls, and Elon Musk has already said that he's eliminating them from Twitter. But see, they had to be there for a certain amount of time. Why? Sting operation. There was some people that came against me early on. They're gone. They're gone. They've already brought doubles in. And it's been reported and recorded and stored. So Jesse here, he's bringing a message, a divine message of hope and of a prosperous future. And thank you for that, Jesse. Thank you for all the time and effort that you and your wife have put into this. And I'm looking forward and hope that I can be part of what you're doing in the future.
Oh, 100%. You're always welcome to come here, brother. Anytime that you want to come on to our show, definitely. And with what you said about the phones listening, I've always lived by the philosophy, don't ever say anything that you wouldn't be, want anybody else to hear what I don't care whatever I say, I live by my words, right? So,
Right.
it doesn't matter if anybody's listening. You can listen all you want. I would tell you to anybody's face the same thing that I would say, behind anyone's back, right?
Well, see, and we're being monitored 24 hours a day. When the resonance of the earth returned and it was reactivated, it comes up through the earth through us now. So that's how they're already scanning us. So they already know who we are. So when we show up at the Redemption Center, they're already going to have an understanding of our heart. And that kind of leads us into the humanitarian projects. I don't know. Have you ever talked about the humanitarian initiative projects?
Not too much. I have my friend Dave, who, he's really immersed into your world and everything, and he's always calling me, telling me about things and telling me to write my humanitarian project. And I've had some people give me a bunch of the Zim Bob dollar thingies, and so I kind of know all about it. We haven't really talked too much about it here. But if you wanted to share that, I know that this was the flat earth hippie from our YouTube channel says when you sidetracked him, he was getting ready to say something about a few $1,000s of XRP that a guy might have. Do you remember
Okay.
what you were going to say?
Yeah. Yeah. What I was going to say is knowing, well, here's how the Lord put it. One day I was feeling a little down, and I just, the Lord said, "Hey, I want you to know this has been a journey, not a destination." And the journey was never to convince people about the price for XRP. It was to give them information to make an informed decision. And I tell you, Jesse, it was like a 60-pound pack came off my back. And I had to reveal to everybody that I had previously revealed that when they get to the Redemption Center, they would see the value for XRP. And at that point, they had the opportunity to decide whether they were going to tender or not tender their XRP. Because we all have to sell it back. Nobody can own it. Nobody can keep it. Because it starts with the letter X, it means nobody can own it. We were granted a time to acquire it. And that's from God's grace. That's because Trump didn't continue in his current position. Now you can go back and watch his last rally. And he is just electric. He is fired up. He's got something in his hand and he's just coming out like this. And he's like, "Guys, I am so excited." He says, "You have no idea what I'm about ready to do." He says, "I wanted to sign the documents before I came out here, and they told me I had to wait till after the election." It was the Nasara Jasara documents. It was the ones that allowed us to go into the system. Well, the buyback of XRP is part of that system. See, Ripple is the fiduciary. They were given the governance. There's the seven kingdoms. They're part of the governance board for XRP. And when it was originally set up, this is what they said. Number one, we want it to be the United States. We don't want China running it. Number two, we want everything transparent. We don't want anything hidden, like the Federal Reserve and the SEC and the IRS and everything, what they were doing. The SWIFT system. The SWIFT system was the biggest con in the world. That's how they stole the money with interest, which by the way, it's over with. It doesn't function anymore. Ripple's just announced their partnership with SWIFT, which had a 2-year agreement, which expired, in the same respect that a company acquiring would present the senior partner of the firm they're acquiring. But all they're telling them is, "Hey, you had an office. Don't come into work. We'll take it from here." Because it's antiquated. It didn't work. It was cabal. So by doing so, they made sure that everything was going to move very smoothly. Okay. So with my comment with regards to the couple thousand of XRP, the Lord said, "Dave, I want everybody to be able to choose their price." Now get this point. It was so dynamic when he said it. He said, "I have to give them free will. And I've already put into their heart what they want for their XRP." Now you can go and look at the boards on Twitter with regards to XRP Army. The vast majority of people want between $10 and $100. That's it. They just want to be a millionaire. Even though I've shared that the liquidity value required for XRP through the 100 billion coins, provides the minimum liquidity for the global environment. And that price given to XRP is $1 million a token. And it proves out mathematically based upon the math that operates the universe. It's been operating the stock exchange. All this information was taught to me over a 2.5-year period by my mentor, who's a genius. And he's the one that broke the codes for my cousin, W.D. Gann. And he's the one that actually taught the Chicago floor traders at the Chicago Mercantile Exchange how to trade. So I spent 2 years to become certified as a master trader. That was in the 90s. I didn't use that information for anything other than my own personal trading. So now I come in and I'm responsible for doing the price discovery, what the Lord wants me to reveal. And all of a sudden, it's just clicking. And Jimmy Valley goes, Dave, how are you doing this? I go, Jimmy, I just know it. It's just in me. And it's all proofing and it's matching and everything else. Well, get this, Jesse. After I had already proven that the liquidity requirement for the entire globe to operate 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, was $100 quadrillion. That's 10 to the 17th power. There's that 17 number again. So I do the math, right? I need to know what all the money is. So I use the Asian Elders Gold number. And we could use anywhere from the 1 with 45 zeros. We can use the 6 with the 26 zeros, or we can use the 4 or the 43 or the 4 with the 19 zeros. Well, I'm talking 10 to the 17th. My number is really low compared to that. So it was a question of how do we get people to understand big numbers? Well, that's where the Asian elders loaning all of that money to the 300 largest financial institutions came out. The US had a 5 with 60 zeros. That's how much money the United States government borrowed from the Asian elders. 5 with 60 zeros and an additional 10 million metric tons of gold. The Rothschilds had an infinity sign. They basically had the black credit card. Whatever you need, we'll give it to you. The WHO, infinity sign. Whatever you need, just come to us. We're your bankers. One of the banks of Sweden had an 8 with 200 zeros, Jesse. 200 zeros. A Swiss bank. Now you wonder why banks in Switzerland, in the entire country of Switzerland, was considered neutral, right? Did you know that their guard was actually the protective force for the Vatican?
The Swiss Guard.
Swiss Guard.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. And they had one of the tunnels that went to the Vatican. It's like 400 miles. It was 1,500 miles to go from the Vatican to Jerusalem. And then they had tunnels that went from the Vatican to Buckingham Palace. They went everywhere. I mean, they hit everything underground.
World War I, World War II.
Mm-hmm.
Everywhere was fighting all around, but nobody went and touched Switzerland. It was just protected for some reason. Big European wars, but for some reason, nobody was allowed to go to Switzerland.
Well, and I'll tell you one other place that I've been to, and it's Prague. The city of Prague was never bombed. So Global Military White Hat Alliance, go check out Prague. Go check out Prague.
It's a beautiful city. My heritage comes from Czechoslovakia, and when I went there with my mom, I took 1,200 pictures in 24 hours that I was there.
Oh my gosh.
Everywhere I looked was something beautiful to take a picture at.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's fantastic. But see, we don't put these relationships together. We don't think about stuff like that because we had no idea of the vast amount of evil that was taking place. I mean, right to the point where I was able to prove that the Rothschilds were controlling the Vatican. Because back in the day, the church needed the kings and the kings needed the church. And they fed off of each other. So the kings needed the spiritual wisdom that the church said that they could provide them. And of course, it was for money and back and forth. So that's how they stayed in power, right? Because if you wanted forgiveness, you had to go to the church. You couldn't just go to God. Well, that was the biggest lie from the pit of hell. I never bought into that. I just went to my Father. I knew I didn't have to go through man. And of course, Jesus wasn't a man. He was God in flesh. He never had the male chromosome because he was, and the inception was through the Holy Spirit. And you can't, that's one of the things in the end days that'll be shown. He didn't have the male chromosome. But yet in our DNA is the name of God. YHWH. In us. I've proven it. So he made sure that we were in, or he was in every one of his creation.
The spark of life. When you come to be, there's a spark. When you come in, there's a spark that goes out. That is the God spark. That's in each and every single one of us. And we choose to either live and find that Christ in our heart, to live like with a Christed heart, or live like the Antichrist, the accuser, the opposer, the deceiver. That's living in the Antichrist spirit. So,
Right.
the choice is yours. Do you want to be in that Christed heart? And, you will be judged by what's in your heart.
Well, and think of it this way. And then remind me to come back to the 1,000, a couple thousand XRP and how that applies. If we know that God had the ability to become flesh and blood, that was his guarantee that there would always be one righteous after Noah. So he kept that back from the devil. And that's how he was able to bring us redemption to come home to him through Jesus. Because remember, when it came time for Noah, Noah was the only one that loved the Lord. And the Lord said, because of you, Noah, and your relationship with me, I will not wipe out mankind ever again. And my promise to you is, symbolically, is the rainbow. And the rainbow just happens to be the name of our paper currency, rainbow currency. And it's not based on some other, how many letter group. No, they tried to hijack that. So that's why the currency is called rainbow currency. So we are already 100% gold asset backed as a standard. And we can't say gold standard because gold standard applied to the cabal. This is a gold asset backed standard, which is at a completely higher level. And they've already assayed and stored so much gold backing the new quantum financial system that's why the retail gold isn't necessary. It'll just be a commodity. It'll just be traded for use in jewelry and computers and things like that. And the reason why it goes down in value after Nasara is because that's how they take out the nefarious component that would have tried to store it up to then use the increased value in gold. Well, there isn't going to be an increased value in gold at the retail level. But part of the pricing discovery using base 10 math, which is what I used for XRP, was I was able to determine the price of gold and silver on the quantum financial system. And it was really simple. Started with the Rosie Rios $100 bill. I don't know if you saw anything on that. Rosie Rios created a brand new $100 bill in 2009. It was shown to the public in 2010, and it went into circulation in 2013. On the left-hand side of the bill, it depicts our old fiat currency system. And then there's a blue line almost in the middle of the bill. And then when you look to the right-hand side, there's a gold feather pen, there's a gold inkwell, there's gold writing for the Constitution. It's all gold. The number in the bottom right-hand corner is gold. Well, remember I talked to you about how we have to see things? God puts it right in front of us, right? The sun, lake of fire, this $100 bill. It shows us going from the fiat currency system into our new gold asset-backed system. And it's a timeline. And he showed me the timeline, and I was able to report the timeline. And when we crossed into our new gold asset-backed standard, July 24th, 2022. Started in 1950 on the far left-hand side, and it ends at 2062, the far right-hand side. It even shows when we're no longer going to need money to operate as an economy. I mean, it's amazing. It's just all right there. It was so cool. And when I tied that back to XRP, the Lord said people have free will. They have to make the decision themselves. And I had to go back to everybody and tell them, hey, what I originally thought was going to happen at the Redemption Center, God said now each person is going to enter their price for XRP. Well, you now know what the price is. There's no reason for you to enter any other price than that. The people viewing this, there's no reason to enter any other price than $1 million. Why? Because that's the maximum price that's going to be paid. Now, there are people that don't know this information, won't know this information, and they're going to go in and put their $4.50. They're going to put in their $10. They're going to put in their $100, and they're going to get exactly what they asked for. And why is that? Number one, they had to be given the choice. Number two, God's already put it in their heart. He's already determined how much they should have because he knows the rest of their life, right? If you gave the wrong person $100 million, you would destroy them. What happens to people that win the lottery?
Most of them go bankrupt. Most of them
bankrupt.
go destroy themselves. Most of them into the drugs and all kinds of, they have lots of really bad things end up happening to them because they can't handle what it is to have that type of money.
And people start preying on them. Everybody under the sun is coming to them. Hey, I've got this idea. I want to do this. People that wouldn't even have given them the time of day, family members, siblings, you name it. Everybody's their best friend now. Hey, when are we going out to dinner? Let's go on a trip. Spend your money on me. Well, I watched that happen in the professional athlete environment. When I was a junior and senior in college, I worked for a professional sports management company that was designed to protect athletes and their money. Put them on an allowance. Help them understand that once you're a professional athlete, everybody is your friend. But the moment the money stops, so do they. They're gone like the wind. But what was so cool about it is he said, Dave, and he showed me a document that I found that nobody else found. This was back in July of 2021. And the document was an agreement on how to have perfect title on a digital asset. And it said that there couldn't be any adverse claims. So let's say that I told you what the price was, but in your mind, you only wanted 500. You could get the $1 million and then come back and file a claim that you were coerced and that you only wanted $500. And that would hold up the entire process. It would stop the use of every one of those tokens. Yeah. So that eliminates it, right? Because if they ever tried to file an adverse claim, what's the first question they're going to ask? Well, who determined the price? Were you told the price? Well, I heard a lot of prices. Yeah, but how did you enter $99? Well, that's the number I wanted. Well, why? Well, because that would make me a millionaire. Okay. Did anybody coerce you? Well, I guess I did. No case, no claim. I mean, when I went back to my followers, Jesse, and I said, "Great news. The Lord said you now get to pick your price for XRP." They were like, "What are you talking about? We have to pick the price?" I said, "Yeah, it's already in your heart." It was like I was taking something away from them. It's like, "Hey, I love your number, but I want my price." It's like Mel Carmine. I've been on his show several times, trying to educate him and his followers and help him understand how the whole mathematics process works. And he says, "Dave, I really want your number, but I think it's this." I'm like, "Well, you're gonna get what you asked for." Now, what would he put down behind closed doors when it's just him? He's going to put down the number that I told him. Why? Because instantaneously in his head, he's going to do the math. See? So right now it's a little bit of ego because he didn't come up with it. But that's okay. I didn't come up with it. God led me to it. He educated me. He prepared me. Kind of like John the Baptist. It's coming, it's coming, it's coming. Here it is, here it is. And then you just have to accept it for what it is. So by a person just having a couple thousand XRP at $1 million a token, what's that worth?
I don't even know, but all I know is I just want to give it all away, right? Like I don't want that. That's the way my heart is. One of my, things that I want to do for humanitarian projects is build just solar greenhouses and all around the city so we can feed all the people in the city. That's one of the things that I've been wanting to do is just, cure the world of world hunger, stop world hunger has been one of my missions throughout my life. And it's interesting that you said, because I've been awake and aware for, 30 plus years. I wanted to become prime minister of Canada so I could fire the whole entire government. And then everyone would have to, and I'm including myself, and everyone would have to write a letter saying why your job is important and what value do you bring to the country in order to get your job back. And that's one of the things that I wanted to do. And it's interesting you said that 90% of the government would be fired because most of them are useless. They're not bringing any value. And it's just, the beast can continue to feed. So very fascinating. And I didn't know a lot about you before this. I've seen you on some of the places, but actually hearing and talking to you, wow, I'm actually blown away here. And, I feel very in alignment with what you're saying and, your optimism on things. It's really refreshing, especially coming from this conspiracy side where doom and gloom seems to sell. So most people want to push that narrative.
Well, and again, this is all part of a master distraction. The plan has not been to provide too much information to the masses, but to those that are called as disseminators. See, you're a disseminator. It's very evident. You've been called to disseminate information. Now the question is, where are you getting information? Are you then able to tap into the next level that takes your dissemination to the next level? And I believe that's happening right now. Canada is part of the kingdom with the United States, with Mexico, with Australia. And there's one other country that I believe that's coming in. So there's 7 kingdoms now, which is very, very interesting. So we have Trump, we have Xi, we have the Prime Minister of India. So basically, the BRICS announcements, even though all 209 countries have signed on to BRICS as they signed on to the Nasara Accord. The narrative is just to make it look like it's, one person wants to join and then they have to fill out an application and then another one joins. It's just all part of the timeline to spread things out as we're waiting for this World War III event to be triggered. So Adam will give the final instructions to shut everything off. But everything is still happening behind the scenes at an accelerated rate because what was supposed to take 5 years, they consolidated all into one project. So they brought everything. Nasara, closing down the stock markets, EBS, the buyback of XRP. See, the Asian elders, as the storehouse, official storehouse of God, they put up every single penny in gold, Jesse. to cover the entire Nasara Jasara, the entire XRP buyback, the removal of debt from every country. See, man didn't get to do this. God chose them to store it all up for now. So they paid the full price. On April 5th, if I can go into the Zimbabwe ZIG, on April 5th, their governor announced that they were now 100% gold asset backed for their currency. First time in history. We needed that confirmation, which came after March 31st, when President Trump refused to sign executive order, I think it's 13308, which now allowed Iraq to revalue their currency. Every president prior to wouldn't let them do it, kept them in bondage, controlled. As of that date, their currency's now been revalued. That currency at the revaluation, or during the redemption phase, is upwards of $17.
Wow.
Yeah, that's the contract rate, special rate or contract rate. Then we have the dong. It's going to be somewhere between $12 and $17 too, somewhere in that range. And then we have the Zim bonds. The Zim bonds, I just did a video on that. You talk about being blown away. I had to wait 17 days before I could present my video. So on April 5th, the mayor, or the governor, John, he was the replacement for 3 generations of corrupt governors who stole from the people of Zimbabwe. They took him out. He came in. They got him all prepped and ready to go. In less than a month, he announces their new 100% gold-backed currency called the ZIG. Z-I-G. Stands for Zimbabwe Gold. That had to be done because the Asian elders agreed and bought all the assets above the ground in Zimbabwe. And that's important, and I'm going to cover that. But even better than that was they agreed to pick up the entire cost to buy back all of the Zim bonds. To buy them back. Now, when they released the valuation or the currency exchange, I waited 17 days to see if anybody was going to report on it. And the whole time I'm just like, Lord, when can I reveal it? When can I reveal it? Because I've known for, almost a year that this was coming, and it had to come because the Asian elders had to have a way to take the gold, which they were putting up, and put it into currency for the government, Reserve Bank of Zimbabwe, to then use at the redemption centers to buy them back from us. Basically taking them out of circulation. That's what's happening. Because they were used to bankrupt the country. So I'm waiting, and I finally get the go ahead. I run all the numbers, and I almost don't want to say it, but in post I'm going to put the link to the video so people can go watch it. Now this is going to blow everybody away. The exchange rate on a $100 trillion note, 2008, 2009, AA series. You only want to buy it from Banknote World. I don't receive 1 penny for this endorsement or this announcement. You don't buy it from eBay. You don't buy it anywhere else other than banknoteworld.com. $3.7 billion. I saw your eyes, Jesse. $3.7 billion is the valuation based upon their release of the currency rate for exchange. And that's just their in-country rate. There's 3 rates. There's an in-country rate, there's an international rate, and then there's a special rate, or what's called a contract rate. And this is how the cabal was going to control everything. They were going to determine the rate that people got based upon their connection with them. Now, the in-country rate is just to take care of the people locally. It doesn't apply to us. We can't run to Zimbabwe and get that rate because we're not from Zimbabwe. But the international rate and the contract rate are significantly higher, and that's all I can say. That's all I can say. So if 3.75 billion is not enough, I don't know what is. Yes, they're selling, the price has been escalating on Banknote World. But the day before I did the video, it was $179. I think now it's over $200. But there is a 10% discount. Now, if you've been gifted Zimbabwe bonds, then part of the information that I released, which is part of the protocol, and that's identified and pinned on my Twitter page for the humanitarian project information, it walks you through the entire process, the script, what to say, the template. The template's 99% done. It was already pre-approved by Ben Carson for humanitarian projects. It's already been endorsed. And what has been said is just presenting the template, whether you have currency or not, or bonds, expect $1 million towards your humanitarian projects, the ones that you want to do. And if you're faithful and you follow the rules of compliance, it can open up as much as $8 billion. So there's your funding, my friend, for what's on your heart. Not even counting the redemption value for your Zim bonds. But here's the key. If you've been gifted any currency or Zim bonds, you have to have a notarized gift letter from the person that gave them to you. Because when you buy them, if you buy them from a broker dealer, they're registered. And that information has gone to the government. Well, just to give you a situation where one of the groups called Tier 3, so there's Tier 1, 2, 3, and 4, and then there's us, Group 5, which is general public. There were 30,000 participants that went into redeem their Zim bonds. Over 50% of that 30,000 member group was considered nefarious. And they took them all away. So there's a ton of counterfeits. That's why you don't buy on eBay or anyplace else, just the scammers. But they are going to buy back all the counterfeits, but they're certainly not going to pay the value I just told you. You know, you might get $100, if that. But they have to take them off the marketplace. But see, the cabal was going to use that to control people. So if you didn't do what they told you to do, they would just take away all your money. Because they would control the central bank, right? Through a digital currency, and they could turn it off whenever they wanted to. See, our money going onto the quantum financial system in the fifth realm is not hackable. Nobody can get to it. That's why the attempt to counterfeit XRP failed by JP Morgan. They tried to hack it, re-engineer it. But what they found out was you can't reverse engineer something that wasn't created here. It was created up there. And that's what's led to their fall. And news continues to come out that they were behind Ethereum. They were running Ethereum.
Yeah, I heard Ethereum is going down as well as the Bitcoin. But Janet, here's another one I have to take your attention to. I made a humanitarian project according to the template you so generously provided, but I heard that you needed us to forward our templates to you. Where should I send it?
I've never
not
said
right.
that. No,
Okay.
that's not true.
Okay.
That's not true. Anybody that's asking for your template is a scammer. That's between you and the Redemption Center. Not for anybody else to know. And I say that because you don't want anybody knowing the name of your trust. You don't want anybody knowing what your initiatives are
Mm.
because they're trying to piggyback
Mm.
on your program. And you don't want that. And when it finally comes down to it, there are the most severe penalties for revealing information with regards to your humanitarian trust and what you receive at the redemption center, to the point where in that non-disclosure that everyone has to sign, even if you don't have currencies or a humanitarian project, they will take it away if you share it with your kids, you share it with your spouse. I mean, this is serious. Everybody that's working at the redemption centers is contracted through the U.S. Treasury Department, and they've been hand trained. And they're looking for people to reveal information, right? Loose lips sink ships. And the problem is people have become too brazen in their sin nature, asking for personal and confidential information. Hey, Jesse, how much did you make this year? You know, the narcissist sucks up so they can gather intel on you to then turn around and use it against you, right? So the point is if it's not necessary to say it, it's not necessary to say it. And depending upon how many Zim you have, or now as we're being told that the dinar and the dong are being pulled into the humanitarian projects list, to where a certain percentage of the payout we get to keep personally. And that's between 5 and 20%. We can do whatever we want with that. There's no restrictions on it. That other remaining portion, which could be 80 to 95%, has to be used exclusively for humanitarian projects. Now, here's the divide. If you don't walk in with a humanitarian initiative trust, that 80 to 95%, you will have to give away to the 17 national projects. You won't have a choice. They'll thank you for your donation. And that's probably 99% of the public. And that'll be used to take care of our infrastructure, everything. And then they're going to be enrolling 18 to 26-year-olds into the military. Not for war, but for the bodies to do the construction, the renovation. So they'll be the ones lifting, the boards and the hammers and the saws, and people they'll be kept local for the community. But they'll be paid very, very well for doing that.
Infrastructure.
Yeah, that's the most of the humanitarian national projects are. Water, air, bridges. Why are all the bridges going down? Because they're going to be rebuilt. That's why they're going down, because they're faulty. It isn't really terrorism. It's pre-infrastructure. But they have to sell it in the narrative, right? Keeps people distracted. They want people distracted. They want people annoyed, frustrated, but not to the point where they activate, Jesse, where they want to take the situation into their own hands. And a lot of this is for their own protection too. Because if we had everybody awake, what would happen?
A lot of pissed off people.
A lot of pissed off people. You'd have everybody taking everything out of the stock market. Well, the White Hats control the stock market right now, and that's how they're able to continue to push up the rates to increase the value of the retirement accounts. But you're going to get the value of your account, not the assets. So if you own gold, you're going to get the value of the gold, which has been going up, right? And you're going to get the value of whatever you were holding, your Apple, whatever it was, or your bonds, at the date they turn the switch off. So they have a point to reference. See, they're not going to crash the market to zero, because it wouldn't be fair to take somebody with a retirement account, Apple at 150, it goes down to 25, and then the government reimburses you on the difference. Nobody else got that advantage, whether they own stocks or not. But the point being is, if you have equities, you have bonds in the market, those are not guaranteed. Janet Yellen, when she came out, made no reference to the fact that the stock market is being picked up on the quantum financial system. So whatever you own of that world, it will be gone when they shut it down and they lock it up. So if you want to get that money onto your Quack account, you need to liquidate your equities. Everything other than retirement accounts, you're fine. I'm sorry, only the retirement accounts you're fine with. Get rid of everything else. Have that money wire transferred into your bank account. And if you need to open up a couple more bank accounts because it's too much money, then do that and you're fine. You can add your grandchildren and your children on as beneficiaries onto your account. They have no control over your account, but it increases the FDIC limit by $250,000 per beneficiary. They don't tell you about that. But again, everything's already mirrored and covered 100% on your Quack account on the QFS. Okay, so you don't have to do anything other than, like I said, if you own a portfolio of stocks and bonds, get it off. Take it off. Put it where you know it's guaranteed. It's not going to go away. But again, 99% of the people will lose all of that. Now, because it's shut off, Jesse, it'll be like 9/11. Nobody's jumping out of windows. It's like, oh, honey, it's okay. It's just like 9/11. They just had to turn it off. And when it comes back on, we'll be fine. Keep everybody calm, right? They don't want people injured. Calm. And then they're going to go through the redemption center, get their NASARA money, the money coming back from the bonds and the Social Security and everything. And they're going to go, gosh, honey, I don't even care about that money that we'll never see again, that $40,000 or that, $1 million from the stock market. Why? Because we got tens of millions, hundreds of millions. And I'm so glad we don't have a stock market anymore, which fills a prophecy going back to the 1700s from an Orthodox priest who said that New York would be destroyed, Mammon would be destroyed, and that the stock market would never, ever, ever reopen. Well, doesn't it make sense if you're getting rid of evil, Jesse? You don't basically bring it over to a pure system. It'd be like saying, well, yeah, my computer hard drive had a virus and I lost all my files. So you go to Best Buy and you buy a brand new computer and you put the old hard drive in? No, it doesn't make sense. You pitch that thing. You drill a hole in it and you dump it. You start fresh and clean. Because why? When we go into this new economy, it's about humanity, just what you said. It's about caring for humanity. It's about taking care of the children. It's about the love. Because God didn't do all this for us to just bring in the crap. Because we want it. See? And this is where that sin nature comes in, right? It's like the monkey with his hand in the gourd holding the grain. And 5 people are coming at him with machete. And he won't let go of the grain, will he? No, he's going to get killed. And that's what people are basically doing for themselves right now when they're going through all this, I got to plan for my retirement. I got to figure out how to structure my assets. You're going to be given a trust, a temporary trust at the Redemption Center. All this old paperwork is defunct. All the partnerships, all the corporation paperwork, and probably most of the trusts that people have already paid for right now, because they don't contain quantum language. And that was another thing we ran into in the valuation committee for XRP. We had this process that was going to would require hundreds of attorneys reviewing documents, preparing documents for everybody. And one day the Lord just said, why would I do that to everybody? I can handle all of this in 2 minutes at the Redemption Center. And it was like this huge epiphany. And I went, oh my gosh, no wonder the non-disclosures have become so restrictive, because they can't have people walking out knowing that they're getting the redemption of their XRP. So that way I go through, and then you're calling me the next day on the phone saying, Dave, how'd it go? It went great, Jesse. Well, what'd you get for your XRP? I got X. And you're like, oh, okay. So when you go in for your appointment, are you going to put down the number that I gave you that I got? No, you're going to put a higher number. And then it would just repeat itself, and it would destroy what God had already intended for people. Why? Because now it was being driven by man.
Totally makes sense.
So that's the answer to where I was going with the couple thousand XRP. Now, see, now what we've added is not just the XRP, but now we've added the ZIM bond, and how it's playing into the humanitarian aspect. But see, if we don't have that humanitarian initiative trust completed before we walk through the door, then if we had ZIM bonds or dinar or dong, we're going to give the lion's share back to the national programs, and we get a thank you. But what if I had stuff on my heart that I wanted to do? Well, I lost that opportunity. I get one shot at it. And that's why on that page that's pinned to my profile, it's all right there. The link to pull down the template, a 10-minute video that explains to you how to do it. Actually do it in the video in under 10 minutes. Complete it. And you have to have it notarized. You have to have your gift letters. And now there's even a new update with regards to packaging our currencies and our bonds. But see, we have to know what we hold. We can't call something a currency if it's a bond, because then we're telling the representatives we don't know what we're talking about. So it's really a test. So we use the proper language to define the instrument, like the ZIM bonds. Their three-letter identifier is ZWL. So we're there to redeem our ZWL. We don't call it ZIM bonds. We don't say, hey, why are you here? Well, I'm here to trade in my dong. Wrong answer. Floor opens up. You didn't say the magic word. You didn't know what to say. So we know you're not educated. So, as you can see, I've done many things. Identifying the evil, identifying the sting operations, identifying the price discovery for XRP, identifying the price discovery for gold and silver on the XRPL QFS, working with the Nasara Jasara. See, I attended a special meeting in 1994 that I didn't even know I was going to attend. So I'm there for a financial conference, and the gentleman that was in charge of us, 20, 30 somethings, he says, guys, there's somebody coming here after the conference is over. I want you to stick around. And of course, it was on a Friday. We'd been there for 3 days already. We were tired. We wanted to go home. It was, get our Friday weekend started, get home, drink beer, go out, do whatever. And he's like, can you guys just stick around? I think you're really going to appreciate this. And he tells us who's coming, and we don't know who he is. We're not following politics. And he's 45 minutes late. He comes running in. He's just sweating from head to toe. Literally ran from LAX to the hotel. And he says, guys, I'm sorry I'm late. I've got about 35 to 40 minutes, but I guarantee you what I have to share with you today is going to change your life forever. And he introduces himself, and he's Dan Rostenkowski, the House Ways and Means Committee chairman, April 15th, 1994. And he says, there's a program that's been on the chalkboard at the White House going back to the 60s. Well, who's running it in the 60s? Kennedy. And he says, here's what the program is designed to do. Number one, it's going to privatize the Postal Service. It's going to revamp Social Security. They're going to draw a line in the sand, and if you're this age by that date, you'll stay in the current system. If not, there'll be other programs made available to you financially to invest in. And he says, we're going to abolish income tax. Income tax is going to go away. We're going to get rid of all income taxes on investments. And that just set us off, right? Because there's a financial conference. And we're just thinking about all the money that could be made, not having to pay taxes on investments, real estate, etc. It's like, woo-woo. He's like, guys, calm down, calm down. He says, the part I haven't told you yet is it's not going to happen for about 30 years. Well, it's exactly 30 years right now.
Wow.
Yes. And he says, when this thing happens, he goes, we don't have a name for it yet. We don't know what to call it. Well, it's NESARA. It's JASARA. It's the global program. And the funny part about it is I did an interview just last week, and I was talking about the fact that, you know, the first point he made was privatizing the Postal Service. Well, I've been told, and I've verified this, that Federal Express is flying all the U.S. postal mail because they want to get to the household every single day, right? Because they're delivering packages. So then I came to find out, Jesse, that someone through Trump bought the Postal Service. And there's something about owning the Postal Service. And I heard this comment from David Strait that gives you ownership of the land. And that's why the Postal Service was so critical. That by putting the Postal Service into our country, it gave ownership of all the land. Now, I don't know a lot about that. Maybe there's somebody that knows more about it and would like to read me in on it. But I believe the Postal Service has already been privatized.
Could it be through land patents? Because I know someone was talking about patenting their own land, and once you've patented your land, then you have a branch of a sheriff or something that's above. Any law enforcement comes to your land, there you call these people, they would get anyone off your land because it's your patented your land.
I think it goes higher than that.
Okay.
I think it goes to the fact of being able to claim ownership. Now, we've lost the ability to own our land. If you read your deed, it says you're a tenant. That means you're a renter. That's all being changed. Now that sovereign law is back. You see, we're really sovereign citizens again. And that's not being refuted. Even the law enforcement agencies have been told that. Don't stop people for not having a license. Don't stop people for not having their registration tags. They have a right to travel freely. And you notice they're almost nowhere to be found. You very rarely see them on the road unless there's an accident or they're just running general patrols because they've been repurposed to prepare for the martial law that takes place once the EBS goes off and we go into lockdown. So the C word was actually our pretest for the lockdown that's coming. And the reason why that's so important is because they need us off the streets. They need us away while they finish up the last of the up to 50 million people that are being extracted. The remaining 34 satanic sites will be removed. So that's being taken care of. And they'll be apprehending those people to take them away. Now, if you're out on the street, they don't know you from anybody. And they've been instructed to haul you away. Now, I don't say this to not be considerate, but what I've been told is there's no guarantee that person is coming home because they could be looked at as hostile. So what if somebody, is out there saying no one's going to tell me what to do, and they're out there causing trouble, or they're not causing trouble. They got caught as the patrols came through and they were going up 2 blocks to go visit their friend. You're not going to be treated any differently. Now, when they interrogate you, that's a completely different story. I don't know what that protocol is. But the message coming through is do not be outside your house. Now, does that mean I can't be in my driveway? Probably not. You know, a lot of people did that, or they went across the street to their neighbors and they all huddled in the garage and had a nice little kumbaya. That's okay. But don't be in the middle of the street when they come driving down your street because they'll see you. So just, keep that in mind. It's for your protection. So you don't get caught up with the nefarious people they're coming after.
What
So,
about people walking their dogs and stuff?
nope, nope, you cannot be off your property.
Wow, and someone said, "What do you mean by the 50 million people extracted?" So from what I got, he said that there's 50,000 sealed indictments. I think you said
500.
500,000 sealed indictments with up to 100 people per
99.
indictment,
Yeah,
99 people per indictment. So
Mhm.
basically, it could be up to 50 million people that they're going to extract for doing the dirties, doing the evil deeds here, right?
Mhm.
So they've got to go and find all those people, all that we're helping, supporting, that we're knowing, that we're doing, the evil works here. And it could be up to 50 million. It could be only 10 on one indictment, right? Doesn't mean there's 50 million
Right.
people, but
I
I think
I
he's saying
figured an
up.
average of maybe 2 to 5. That
So
was the number I had, which was about 5 to 8 million people.
so probably 5 to 8 million people. He's saying up to 50 million people, but they need to find these people and extract them to wherever they're going to extract them to. But I think that's what you were meant by the 50 million people that turn out
Correct.
about that.
Correct. Correct. Yeah. They already know where they're at. They've got their residents under watch. And a lot of the things that have been happening with weather related stuff, snowstorms, power outages, this is so they can continue to conduct their operations on a daily basis. We had a huge um, removal for Super Bowl Sunday here in Phoenix. All the private corporate jets flying in. I was told that the noise from the private jets taking off was almost constant in prior years. 3 of them left after the Super Bowl, and that was it. 3.
So a bunch of people were rounded up at this
Oh,
last
yeah.
Super Bowl.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. And they've been making, regular pickups at the airport. The choppers come in, and there's one big chopper, and then there's several accompanying choppers. And it's so funny because, you can hear that sound, "Toot, toot, 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 toot," and they'll just be cruising along the skyline just above the horizon. And then they'll make a sharp turn and then just dive in and get below the horizon level so they can't be seen. Really incredible. But that's how they pick them up. So it will intensify as we're in our homes. And it'll happen all over the country. It's happening all over the world. But my comment about law enforcement is they've been trained as to what to do because there'll be barriers that are put up so people don't leave. Now, foolish people are going to not follow the guidelines, but those will be made clear during that 10 days of disclosure. When we're at home, we've got our 3 weeks of food, and we're watching the 24-hour programming for 10 days over three separate 8-hour recorded programming. And they've got some of the best filmmakers in the world that have been part of that production team to put that together. But this is to help everybody become aware of what has been happening. But it's going to be a big transition for a lot of people that are, suffering from that Stockholm syndrome. If people know anything about that, is people actually fight the change because they don't want the change because they don't know what to expect. Because they want to be in control. But it's all good. It's all good news.
couple people asked about the stuff that they're spraying in the sky. It's still chemtrails are still being sprayed, and some people are saying there's good stuff they're spraying now. I have a hard time believing that. If they should just stop spraying. We don't need more chemicals, whether good or bad. And I know the
Yeah,
earth can take care of itself, and I'm having a hard time with anyone that's saying it's good stuff that's being sprayed in the sky still.
I can't attest to that. I do know when I lived up in the Pacific Northwest, we were bombarded. Bombarded. I mean, there was a period of time where for 8 years, we could just expect to be sick from October to December. Every single H1N whatever that there was, we got it. We got sprayed. And we just got better. So I wouldn't put so much concern on that. It is what it is. But just know that the Global White Hat Military Alliance and God are 100% in control. And they're doing everything they can to minimize casualty. I mean, that's their first priority, coming right from Trump. If it's going to cost human lives, and that's what was supposed to happen on January 6th, we're not doing it. We're going to postpone it.
Arrow was asked a few times here. Can please ask, do we have to reprint our initiative due to date? I'm not sure what that means, but maybe you do.
Yeah, well, let's say they did it, and on the document, let's say they did it in June of last year. So it says June 5th, 2023. You don't have to redate it. Don't have to redate it. Matter of fact, it actually shows that you were prepared well ahead of time. So it's actually kind of an advantage. But see, that's your ability to demonstrate that you're not a procrastinator. So it's part of the test. And that's why in the instructions it says do not change anything. Do not reformat it. Do not change the wording. Do not change the pictures. Why? There's a standard form they want to see. And it's already approved. So it's kind of like, do you want to submit something that they've never seen before? Or do you want to print something that looks like what they know is already approved? If Jesse all of a sudden said, hey, you got to wear this, this yellow patch because that lets everybody know that you're a good guy. Are you going to wear a brown patch because your color scheme is brown? No, you'd be foolish if you did that. You'd want to know how do I get the yellow patch? And it's kind of the same thing. Every one of those pictures was specifically approved for that document. The layout, the spacing, everything, right down to the last little piece. So just let it be. It's not an opportunity for you to show your creativity or your design. It's their design, and that's what they want to see. So enough on that.
Steve is asking, did the White Hats open the borders?
Well, let me comment on the borders because there's a couple different scenarios. A lot of people have had a hard time with the narrative about the people coming up and then being put into hotels, being given credit cards, etc. Here's my understanding. We know that anybody that's not a U.S. national, in order to receive their Jasara, they have to go back to their home country where they were born. And the intent is that they will use the monies that they received to rebuild their country. Now, how do they get home? Our country is going to do everything it possibly can to provide them with free transportation. So this will all be explained during the 10 days of disclosure. But now imagine you're hearing this from somebody who may have even been in your own hometown in Guadalajara, in Italy. My belief is that what has come through, and they put the narrative in a negative light, and rightfully so, just like Gary Gensler, right? Is they're hiding the federal agents from these countries that they brought up to be prepared to talk to the people. to give them the assurance that this is okay. They're not being put on the planes to fly them out into the middle of the ocean and dump them. No, we want them to get back to their country to receive it. Why did they come to the United States to begin with? The land of milk and honey, right? Opportunity. Well, now with these tens of millions of dollars that they're going to receive in their own country, the intent is they put that to work there. It doesn't restrict them from traveling, but that's where they're going to receive their funding, their funds, their resources. But they're the agents of change, the calming voice, the familiar face that speaks their language to help them understand it's all for the good. I mean, because let's face it, there's so many people that are undocumented and unregistered. Are they going to believe me, you, the Border Patrol, the military, when they say, I'm sorry, you have to go back to your home country? No. So that's why these hundreds of thousands of people have been brought into our country under the disguise of illegal immigrants. It's the best way to hide them. And we have to take care of them, right? We have to put them up until that event occurs. So they're going to be in hotels. They're going to be given money to buy groceries. They're going to be taken care of medically. So when you understand that, you're like, oh, now I get it. It's okay. They're not here to do us harm. Now, have a few come through to do that? Absolutely. But we know where everybody is. Everybody's tagged. They know where every single person is 24 hours a day. So nobody's hiding that they don't know where they're at. This is how they're catching all the nefarious people. So you remember when I told you they turn the earth on and we're just an extension of that energy coming through? The off-planet surveillance registers each person. So their whereabouts are known 24 hours a day. Just like GPS. Kind of cool.
Super cool. Someone was asking in a few times, who gets the money when you pass away? Do your kids get it or something? Here, let me bring this.
Okay, that's a great question. Well, when we leave the redemption center, we're going to be given a trust. And a trust is how we protect the money so we can then turn around and have the remaining documents created so we have the ability to pass it down. But we're being given the initial trust documents to protect ourselves. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And then through various organizations, they'll provide the quantum language documents so you can set up the remaining part of your trust.
Another question here. I was late to the party. When is the 10-day disclosure taking place? We didn't talk about an actual date or anything. Well, it wasn't mentioned, but do you feel that this might happen this year?
Yes. I think it could happen tomorrow. We're that close. There are indicators about the events taking place. And as I said, the last thing that had to take place was Adam, the AI computer, sending out the approval to start. And what's the trigger for it to start? Activation of World War III. That doesn't mean a real World War III, but a simulated World War III, like we have taking place right now. And just the other day, it was confirmed that World War III has been activated. So, like I'm saying, it could be any day. Prepare today as if it was 6 months away.
I know there was oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, but prepare, it could be tomorrow. So make sure you're always stocked up on 3 weeks of groceries. Make sure that you keep the gas tank on the car topped off. Because when that EBS announcement goes off, there's going to be 7 messages that go to your electronic devices. Whether you have notification turned on or not, your phone is going to go off, give you a message that says, get your butt home. You got 3 to 5 hours. Now, here's the critical part. They realize people are going to be traveling. So if you're traveling, make sure you have a place to hunker down wherever you're going, because you're going to have to hunker down. And that's okay, because redemption centers don't start until after that. And then you're going to be able to go to a redemption center in that zip code or that area code that you're in. So if you are a resident in California, let's say you live in Los Angeles. No, let's not use Los Angeles. Let's just say Newport Beach. You live in Newport Beach. But now you're traveling and you're in Montana when the announcement goes off. Well, there's no way to get home. So you're going to hunker down. And then when it comes time to contact the redemption center, you're going to call an 800 number, and they're going to ask, what is the zip code for where you're at? And you're going to give them the Montana zip code. So if you need to have documents with you, make sure you take them with you, because you won't necessarily have time to get home to get those documents. That's a strong possibility, because we don't know what the travel situation is going to be directly thereafter. But once we get through those 10 plus 3 days, then we're going to be able to schedule our appointments. Now, I'm being told we're going to complete it all in 15 days. And they're now going to open up the redemption centers, which are over 12,000 now in the United States, 24 hours a day. So they want to get this done as quickly as possible. They don't want it to drag out. And part of that has to do with the fact that there's about 182 million people, 24 years and older, will go to the redemption center, whether you have currency or bonds or not. There's still other forms of payment that you're going to be made aware of. They're going to give you a quantum phone. They're going to give you a quantum laptop. You're going to get a small amount of the rainbow currency. You're going to get your quantum access account card to access your quantum account. You're going to be given a debit card, because during this transition, people need to be able to access money. You're going to be able to set up 1 to 3 bank accounts. So you're going to want to bring bank account information with you. And this is all in the guideline protocol manual that's attached to the information that's pinned on my page, or to go get it and download it. So it's nothing you need to worry about. You just need to be prepared. Does that answer the question, Jesse?
Yeah, and there's a couple more questions that came in. A couple people asked, what about the homeless people? Where do they go? What is a redemption center? Is this in Canada too? And Linda was asking earlier, do you know of any banks that are potential redemption centers in Canada?
Well, from my understanding, the redemption centers are not banks. They can be in a bank building. We're being told here that Wells Fargo is facilitating the redemption centers here, but they're not banks. So think of a bank as, being on the bottom floor, and then the upper floors are where they take care of their private banking. So it's just basically suites, office suites. You're not going to walk into Bank of America, into the branch, and say, hey, I'm here for my redemption center. They're going to go, what are you talking about? This isn't a redemption center. So redemption centers are predetermined facilities where there are representatives that will guide you through the process. Process is designed to be completed in less than 30 minutes. Get you in, get you out. They're saying you won't exit the same door you enter. There will be very, very tight security, law enforcement, military. And the knowledge of those centers is part of what you're signing to not reveal in the redemption center agreement, the NDA. So everything will be monitored, all your, anything and everything. So you want to take the approach that you're not revealing anything during that time. It's 90-day window. Some people will have structured payouts on their bonds, hundreds of billions of trillions of dollars. Their non-disclosures could last the term of their structured payout, which could be up to 25 years. And we're going to have to be able to tell people, shut up, don't ask me any more questions or I'll report you. And you have no need to be asking me that personal information. And be firm and strong about it. Because if you're not, then you fall into the temptation, hey, you know what? This is what you'll lose it all. Not only the redemption part, you'll lose anything that you would have received in your structured payout. And no matter how much whining and crying you do, you'll never get it back. And now I know why part of what the Lord had me reveal within the first couple of weeks of coming onto Twitter. He talked about a time when there would be such weeping and gnashing of teeth that people would be beside themselves because they didn't have control. Now I know this is what it was. And I believe that's why the non-disclosure agreements, which in the very beginning were almost extinct, then got increased because of the nefarious action of people stealing bonds and currencies. And that's why we have to have the notarized gift letters, or give notarized gift letters to people that we gifted currency or bonds to and who we received it from, or it will be taken away from us. So it isn't anything to take lightly. It's to be taken very, very seriously if you want to hold on to it and have use of it.
Couple more questions. Mark says most people only have 3 days food at home at most. People will starve in 3 weeks. Is there going to be relief to people that aren't prepared, for this? Because not everybody's awake and aware. And obviously that would be a horrible thing to do with mass amounts of people having to be stuck home and dying in their homes. So some kind of system has to be in place for those that don't have enough provisions for themselves and their family if they're forced to be stuck in their house.
No, I get it. And I can answer that very succinctly. Number one, we know the internet's going to be shut off. Okay. We're not going to have use of our computers. So if you don't have your humanitarian initiative trust completed, printed off, bound in the proper folder, so it's a clear plexiglass 3-punch hole folder, ready to walk out the door with, and all your currencies sorted by denomination and country and properly labeled. It's all in the instructions. You're not going to have access to do that. So you're going to miss out because you can't create it when you get there. Got to walk in the door with it completed. Number two, there will be basic emergency services, 911 for medical issues, because we're going to have people spinning out. Now we're the calming voice for people that are going to be around us, our neighbors, things like that. We're going to have 3 to 5 hours to get home. Now, what's the first thing that's going to happen? Mom or dad's going to call the other person and say, did you get the message? Yes. Is this a joke? No, this is real. Okay, well, we don't have any food. Okay, I'll go to the grocery store. Over the last 3 years, they've stripped the grocery stores to the point where you have all self-checkout. They've widened the aisles. I mean, our local Walmart, when you walk in now, it's huge with nothing there. Just the guy to greet you. There's no employees. It's all self-checkout. Why? Because they don't want any of the employees injured. Number two, they've widened the aisles and they keep everything stocked so that multiple carts can get up and down the aisles. It wasn't always that way. It used to be really crowded and cramped and it was hard to move and you kind of had to wait, Now you can push 3 carts through there without any problems. They fixed the bags, so the bags open up. But here's my suggestion. You're going to want to make sure that you get yourself your own little mobile cart. Like, the soccer mom cart that collapses. $60. Put it in the back of the car. Get yourselves your own bags. Get some of those frozen food bags, the ones you can carry frozen food in, and get some of the regular ones. Why? When you get to Walmart, you're competing against 1,000 to 2,000 people. They don't have enough carts. You can't walk in there without a cart and then follow somebody to their car to get their cart. They might just turn around and shoot you, right? Because they don't know what your intentions are. So by having your own bags and your own cart, you're guaranteed to be able to move through the store and get what you need. Now, when it comes time to check out, I made a comment one time in a video about how hard it was to open the bags. I mean, I couldn't even get the bag open. And I made the comment that if this is the bags that we're going to have when this event goes down, it's going to be chaos. 2 days later, when I went to my Walmart, that all brand new bags, they just pop open. So if you, with one of your children or spouse, girlfriend, whatever that might be, end up being at the store together when you're going through self-checkout, have the other person go up and help the other person get their groceries in the bags. That removes one less element of frustration that they have to deal with. Now, here's what you do not want to do. You do not want to walk out of that grocery store without paying. Now, let's just say that the credit card doesn't work. You want to have ample cash on hand to buy $400 to $800 worth of groceries. And you're not concerned about the change, okay? You're not concerned. If you only have $100 bills and your bill is $370 and you put $100 bills in, don't worry if it says no change available. That's not the point. The point is you were able to purchase the groceries, get out of the store in a relatively safe manner. You now do not have on your heart the fact that you just stole groceries. You don't want that on your heart going to the redemption center. So don't be one of those people that tries to, run out of the store. See, that's why they ran that test of the kids going in and stealing the clothes. Because they passed a law that says anything under $950, I think it is, it's a misdemeanor. You're not charged. Why would they do that? It wasn't so that these kids could ransack the stores, because they stole a whole lot more than that. No, it was so anybody that managed to leave the store without paying for it wouldn't be prosecuted. Okay? But don't be the one that does that. Be the one that's patient, calm, wait your turn. They've got so many self-checkout stands right now. It's incredible. I mean, I was like 3 weeks ago, we were at Walmart and we went to one of the employee assisted checkouts. And the first thing he says is, "Do you have cash? I only take credit cards and debit cards." I said, "No, I don't have any cash." He looks at me and he says, we don't have any cash to give you. We're waiting for the new cash to come in." Yeah, exactly. And I picked right up on it. And I said, "Oh, so we're waiting for the new cash." And he says, "Then we're waiting for the new cash to come in." And he says, "By the way, there are no employees working in the store today. They were all told to stay home." Now, this is the part where God said, so they wouldn't get hurt. So he either said that or the Lord intervened with that additional comment. But he said, there's just a couple of us here today and everybody else was sent home. Think about it. That was a precursor. That was the tell. It's coming. So, again, you have plenty of time right now to get to the grocery store. to stock up on everything that you want. If it's alcohol you need, if it's treats and sweets and, that, if it's meat, whatever it is, popcorn, jelly beans, licorice, have everything that you're going to need to sit down for 10 days and relax and rejoice and praise.
Just remember that even if you don't have enough food, fasting is okay as well. Like I've gone, 14 days on the master cleanse where I only did, drank some lemon juice, cayenne pepper, and maple syrup for 14 days. 15th day was orange juice. 16th day I ate. When they came down with some of these, like say the baby food shortage, I actually took that as a positive because they weren't feeding, this shitty Similac soy-based baby food. Mothers would actually go and maybe, mash some bananas and some carrots and give them real food opposed to this, kind of crappy baby formula when these food processing plants were going down. But this is processed crap food that, hey, maybe we didn't need that. If for some reason, the food places, maybe fasting might be a good idea to, kind of eliminate the toxins. We can always take whatever these situations are and look at the positives instead of the negatives of, the situations. I've tried to do that. And for a lot of people, fasting is, they wouldn't even know what to do, but, you can literally go without food. I've known someone who had stage 4 cancer all throughout his body. He was overweight, drinking, and they told him he only had a few months to live. I used to play hockey with him, and he went on a 30-day water fast. He only drank water for 30 days, and then he just been eating raw fruits and vegetables ever since. Stage 4 cancer, all clean, 12 years free of cancer.
Wow.
Because, and all he did was, but no cooked foods, no seed oils, no cooked oils. He puts the olive oil on like his raw, but he doesn't cook anything. It's all raw fruits and vegetables. 12 years ago, he eliminated all. And we had him here a few years ago, a guy I used to play hockey with. So fasting's not a bad idea either. And we have around 500 people here watching with us live, on our different platforms. I've got another interview in 13 minutes. Would love to bring you back here, so we can continue talking. I love, this conversation that we're going at. Is there anything that you wanted to share before we wrap this up in the next, 10 minutes?
Well, what I would say is this. Number one, there's no higher priority right now than getting right with God. He's waiting with open arms for you to come back. And all you're doing is acknowledging you were moving in the wrong direction. That's what repentance is. Repentance means to turn from what you were doing. Number two, get your humanitarian initiative trust completed. I've got over 200 hours into that project. At most, it shouldn't take you more than an hour. After you watch the videos, you probably get it done in 15 minutes. It's that simple. And number three, hold everything loosely. There's going to be things that change, timelines change, events change. And be okay with it, knowing that God has already created the plan, and that's what's being taken care of every single day. We do nothing to affect the plan. The only thing we can affect is our relationship with God. So you can rest and relax in knowing that and get rid of all the stress, get rid of all the strife that causes separation. Now, I'll make one other comment about the food. If you have neighbors that haven't bought in, that don't understand, then that's where you acquire some additional food. Maybe an extra week of food, and you'll be able to help them. But people will have enough time to get to the grocery store. They'll figure it out, and they'll just go. So it's kind of hard not to figure out you need food if you don't have food. And they'll make that known. So they want it orderly. They want people to stay in control. There will be people spinning out, but we're the calming voice. So with that, I thank you for tuning in today on all the different platforms. I thank you, Jesse, for making your platform available. My goodness. Thank you for reaching out. I didn't know that you were out there. I haven't had that much time to look up and to look around since my lane's been pretty narrow. So thank you very much, sir.
You're welcome. And obviously, with who we are and what we do, we don't get promoted a lot in the algorithm. So, we're up to about almost 40,000 subscribers. It's been a slow climb everywhere, but each of our platforms are gaining more and more. We've had 4 YouTube channels deleted. We've had our 13-year Facebook account got deleted 2.5, 3 years ago, just before we put on a truth telethon with a whole bunch of truthers in 2020. So we've been, obviously shadow banned and like everybody else. So, we've been growing, and we're really happy about, reaching more and more people every day. So glad, to be able to connect here, with you.
One other thought I had.
Yeah.
I'm going to be in Cape Canaveral for a quantum summit in the first part of June. I think it's June 7th and 8th. So if you're in that area, you can get online and get registered. There's also a virtual event for that. It's being run by Mel Carmine. So I think it's under QFS1776.com. So just want to put that out there.
And a couple people asked, what happens if you don't have your, you don't get your trust plan, you don't create the trust and all that kind of stuff. Humanitarian plan, what if you don't have one and all that? It's not for everybody. Not everybody's going to be doing these humanitarian projects, but everybody's going to be taken care of. Right? You're just not going to be at there's people going to be at different levels. So the people that are aware of what's going on and have humanitarian projects are going to be propagated. And where you're talking about many people doing humanitarian projects all over the world, meaning there's going to be abundance for all, just maybe not the billions in your account to start with, unless you were, awake and aware to some of the stuff that were going on, or have some XRP or whatever it is that, but I think we're going to get to a place where there's going to be no more financial scorecard. There's going to be no more need for currencies and all these type of things. I think that that's just to roll into getting to the place where we all have abundance. And once we're there, there's not going to be no more need for scorecards, in my own personal view.
Mm-hmm. You're right. And not everybody's called, like you said, but this is what I know. If you and I had an opportunity to have dinner, and I said to you, if money was never an issue, what is it you want to do that's in your heart? That's your humanitarian project. It could be as simple as helping some of the elderly in the neighborhood being able to go grocery shopping, and you provide the transportation service. That's a project. Not everybody is intended to save the world. No, it could be just as simple as I said. It could be as simple as making sure that the basketball court and the soccer fields are, the turf is in great condition. It's striped. It's new nets. It's new everything. That's a project. So don't think it's so big when it's as simple as looking across the street. So you don't want to do anything until you look across the street. Then when you look across the street and that's taken care of, then you look around the block, and then you look around your city, and then you look around your neighborhood, and then you look around your state. So we're not saying, hey, everybody's got to go to Africa. It's not like the mission field. No, just look across the street, look around your neighborhood and say, if I have all the money in the world, what do they need? I mean, here's a great one. What if you want to be the one that has the project? Gosh, I need to do this myself. What if you were the one that had the project that took care of making sure that everybody's lawns were mowed and weeded and fertilized? And you're the one directing that project. Think about that. Providing pool service, hot tub service, window washing. Hello? Why? Because most of the people that are providing those services right now are going to be back in their home countries. doing it in their home countries. This is part of the labor shortage we're going to have for a short period of time. But somebody's going to fill that gap. Why not you? Why not you take control of your neighborhood, your block? It gets me excited.
So excited. This conversation has been so refreshing, and be a kind human. Exactly. So thank you again. I start my show here with they're already, we got a group of like 8 or 9 people that are gonna come on a group interview. So this is going to be our first. We've done a lot of open panels where we just open up the stream to anybody that wants to join from all around the world and just have all kinds of conversations about all kinds of different things. This one is a group. It's the Mankinder movement. So that's we're starting, and I think that there's 7 people. I've just bounced into that studio and back and brought them all up. So may the source be with you and protection around you. It sounds like there is through this pivotal time in history. Thanks for all you're doing to help and better humanity, and appreciate this new friendship that we've created here.
Amen. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Well, thanks everybody for all your likes, comments, heart, shares, and stars. We appreciate all of your love and support, however that may be. May the source be with you all. Through this pivotal time in history, knowledge is power. The more knowledge we all have collectively, the less power they have over us. So, find it in your heart, to live with that Christed spirit, and don't be the Antichrist to the Christ, because Christ is in each and every one of your hearts. You just got to look and find it. So love y'all. We'll see you next time. We see you back here on the Missing Link, which we're starting in 4 minutes, another show. So thanks again, Dave. God bless you, and blessings to you all. Bye, everyone. Bye, Dave.